Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Ms. Delay?
Here.
Mayor Leahy?
Here.
Ms. Martin? Ms. Clark?
Here.
Mr. Dakota?
Here.
Mr. Dillon?
Here.
Ms. Doherty?
Here.
7 present.
All right. First on the agenda is a public hearing for interdistrict school choice program. We'll open up the public hearing for all those in favor. All those in favor? In favor? That portion is closed. Open up to anybody in opposition. Opposition? Opposition? That portion is closed. This appears under new business on the agenda, and a vote, we'll take the vote at that time. Next, we'll get to the minutes. Need a motion to approve the regular schedule and special meetings of the Lowell School Committee, May 5th, 2021, May 12th, 2021, and the FY '22 budget session on May 10th, and place them on file. So I need a motion by Mr. Dakota, seconded by Mr. Dillon. All those in favor, say aye. Permission to enter, Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The permissions to enter for this week are within the committee's packet. Our recommendation is approval as written.
All right, so we'll take up, are you leaving, Dylan? Yeah. Okay. All right, so just take up permission as a whole. Permission to enter as a whole, or do you want me to separate the last one? Okay. But hers is last, so. All right, so we'll do the community teamwork one first. So, need a motion to approve the permission to enter for community teamwork for $18,000. Need a motion by Ms. Clark, second by Mr. Dakota. Roll call?
Ms. Delay?
Yes.
Mayor Leahy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Mr. Dillon?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Present.
5 yeas, 1 present, 1 absent, approved.
Next, we have permission to enter for Nick's Transportation, Van Pool Transportation, H&L Bloom Incorporated, Seven Hills Foundation, Southern Worcester County Educational Collaborative. Any questions? Motion to approve by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Ms. Delay. Roll call?
Ms. Delay?
Yes.
Mayor Leahy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Mr. Dillon?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
All right, we seem to be moving pretty quick, so why don't we go right to the agenda and then we'll get into the speakers with the budget? 'Cause we're moving pretty quick, right? So next is the motions. First motion by Ms. Doherty, request superintendent provide the committee with job description to add grant writer position to Lowell Public Schools staffing recommendations for discussion along with other new positions in the Spence account. Seconded by Ms. Martin. Ms. Doherty?
Thank you, Your Honor. So as we're looking at new positions, of course, there's always the concern, what happens when the ESSER money goes away? My feeling is that a district this size should have a grant writer on staff. We have a grant manager who handles the fiscal aspect, the actual numbers of the grant. But in terms of programmatic, we have one person, Carolyn Rochelot, who is primarily, her position is completely funded by a 21st Century grant. So her job is to manage that grant. That's the focus of her work. And that, we went from 8 schools to 28 schools in terms of summer school. I mean, that job has really increased exponentially. In addition, I got some information, and thank you, Ms. Turner, about how much in grants Ms. Turner has Ms. Rushlow has been behind, even though her job is primarily the 21st Century Grants, and the number is 4.2 million and some change, and over 15 grants. So my thinking is a position like this would pay for itself. And there's a lot of opportunity for grants out there that we are just not able to tap into because we don't have somebody focused on actually looking for them, writing the grants. We've got people ad hoc doing some grant writing, I know, but this would have a focused approach, targeted approach on getting the grants and then managing the grants once we get them, the programmatic aspect, not the fiscal. We would be working with, obviously, the fiscal person who's already doing that for us. So that was my impetus for asking for the administration to come up with a position. I think it's a fairly standard grants writer. I think most districts our size have somebody in this role full-time, and I would want to look at that as we go forward, looking at the other job descriptions for the positions that are being recommended with this ESSER money, because as I said, I think that it will pay for itself once this funding goes away. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on that, Ms. Clark?
Thank you. I have concerns with this motion. A few things. First is we are already talking about a number of positions that are, I've heard some concern from the committee and some from the community of a number of administrators. So this, I think, might be an additional, what would be considered maybe another administrative position. I'm also curious whether we are actually missing out on grant money. Are we really losing and missing opportunities? Whether this would truly be a job that could be a full-time position. I see this as potentially a part of someone's work. You know, we have a deputy chief academic officer that is out there as a position, and I think that there's potential that my understanding is a lot of the grant writing is happening in the academic space. So would this be something that could be a part of a job that currently exists or one that's on the table to be added? The other concern that I have is in last year, we were looking at a position in discussing it here in Chambers that this committee struggled to approve, wouldn't approve. And it was a grant-funded position that was meant to support students, and we argued whether it should be a union position or not. And at the end of the day, I believe that money was wasted. So what I am not sure of is whether I think we need to get we need to think about how best to use the money that we have available. I did call around and ask some people that I respect, folks that are close to this work. And my understanding is there might be, for example, grants out there that the Department of Education is offering, for example, a $10,000 grant, but it might be tied to a specific product or a tool that really goes against what we as a district are doing. And so then we would really need to spend about $50,000 to implement and make use of that grant for $10,000. And I think this to me, and the other concern that someone raised was about project management, that when we bring a grant in, we actually need someone to be managing the work that's happening. And if this is something outside of the direction that we've got people and space working in, we're talking about additional costs. And so those are the concerns that I have with this particular ask. I don't believe that this is something that is needed specifically as written here, and I think it might fall under, I think we should do a better job of approving the positions that have been brought forward and seeing how this work can be a part of the job, specifically the Deputy Chief Academic Officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I'd like to inquire maybe from the administration. I mean, this is a topic that I brought up, I believe, on Monday. I was asking about, do we have sufficient people to write grants? And, it was I think Ms. Turner said that, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Turner, but you felt as though we had people taking care of the grants that we write and we should be interested in. I mean, if we need more grant writers, yeah, we should hire 20. I mean, because, if there's a sufficient amount of grants out there that can bring business into the district, then yeah, let's go. But I guess we need some more analysis, because, I don't know, I'd be interested to just hear from the administration on it.
Any other questions, Mr. Dakota?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Who actually oversees currently the grant writing that's taking place at central office?
Thank you, Mr. Dakota. If I could, Mr. Mayor. So each office has a responsibility for the grants that relate to their office that are then overseen by Ms. Turner's office in terms of compliance, accuracy, and final submission. So there's a grants manager within Ms. Turner's office that does an exceptional job, but each of the individual offices also have responsibility for formal submission and development of their individual programs. What tends to occur is that if we have someone who's writing the grants, they spend time with the individual who's managing the programs to get the content that relates to them. Some offices have chosen to go in the direction of efficiency purposes, writing their own grants. Others have utilized some of our external partners to help support them with the grant writing, and we have some external partners that this is the entirety of the work that operates within their particular organization.
So the short answer is Ms. Turner is the one who has, her department oversees that whole process?
Grant management, yes.
Yes.
Grant writing is a little bit different.
Okay. Excuse me. Is it your feeling that we are not losing potential grants that are out there, that if we had someone dedicated specifically to just not necessarily a department or anything like that, but there are additional grants that are just general grants that would be out there that we're losing out on because we don't have the staff to get that?
Sure, Ms. Turner.
So how to answer this carefully? As I said to you last week, it was when I thought you meant a grant manager, I knew that we had an excellent grant manager in the district that does an outstanding job already. When I thought of Carolyn Rocheleau, who has written 15 grants and has a lot, brought in $4 million, I agree that a grant writer that can pay for itself is a great idea. However, I would caution you because as Ms. Clark just stated, when we bring in a number of grants, there's 3 components of grants, right? You have to write them, then you have to design how you're going to spend it and make sure you go through with that, and then you draw down the fiscal end of it. If we have someone that's managing the fiscal end of it and someone that's writing the grants but no one in the middle, then we're giving money back. So we're wasting money, which actually hurts us in the long run when we do need to go after money that we can get. So if we do analyze this position and decide to add it, we have to consider too that the fact that it's a cycle type of job, just like a budget analyst. A budget analyst might be busy during budget season and then not busy throughout the rest of the year. Well, if you have a grant manager and all of the grants are due at the same time, that person might be very busy for a couple of months right before during the application period. But then what do they do the rest of the year? So if you were going to analyze a position like this, I think it should be a grant and program manager so that when they do go after a grant, that their job also includes designing the programs and overseeing and coordinating the program management, not just someone that sits there and writes grants and then for the rest of the year, what do we do?
Thank you, Ms. Doherty.
I would just like to clarify, that was my intention with the role, because Ms. Rocheleau, and I don't know if you spoke with her or the people that have helped her with the grants, but that's where I'm getting my information, that, she's written all these grants and then trying to help do the programmatic piece when her job is the 21st Century Grant. So my thinking is, we don't have to make a decision tonight. We've got how many other positions that we're going to be analyzing, that we've come up with a position, and grant writer was maybe not the right title, because it wouldn't be somebody just writing them, it would be also following the programmatic requirements of the grant, because you have to deliver, you spend the money, you have to prove that you delivered the way you said you were going to deliver. And that was my intention. Let's get a look at what would be an ideal position, and maybe the title wouldn't be grant writer, And I see it as somebody working with your grant manager that you already have, doing the fiscal piece of it. And we can assess it as we're assessing all these other positions that we have concerns about. This is a perfect opportunity to include this job description, rather than make a decision right out of the gate, we don't need this. That would be my hope, is that I would get the support to move forward with looking at how this role can fit in with our strategic goals and vision for the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Martin?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. You know, I agree. I think it's an excellent opportunity for us to be able to put this position into the mix. We are going to be doing a very, I think, comprehensive review of positions. You know, here's an opportunity where for a position that may be in the, and I'm just making up numbers, but maybe in the $80,000 range, if we can pull that task and focus it on this grant writer program, grant program person, that could alleviate the need for some other positions. So that if we're concerned about the new deputy positions having to take that on, perhaps this is a way that we could find someone who can do that role across the district, and again, pay for itself and eliminate that need within those other positions. So I think the benefit of being able to have all of our cards out on the table and all of these positions in play allows us to take, I think, a very thorough view of it and be able to make the most economical decisions and the most effective decisions for our budget moving forward. So I'll certainly support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other follow-up? Mr. Lay?
Thank you, Mayor. I share the concern with Ms. Clark in regarding to about this position. However, just for the purpose of analyzing whether we need it or not, I do want to support Ms. Dorothy for the purpose of discussion. We're not approving anything tonight. We just want to have just to see what whether we need it or not. So because of that, I will want to support this motion.
Thank you. All right. Any other discussion? Why don't we do a roll call then?
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Mayor Leahy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Yes. Ms. Clark?
Can I just clarify something? Are we going to leave it as grant writer? Because that doesn't speak
Well, it's
to
gonna
the
come back for
position.
discussion, so we can see what the administration wants, and if they wanna combine a manager, writer, then it'll come back in the report,
Okay,
so.
yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Mr. Dillon?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Okay, next, we have 3 subcommittee reports, which we'll coast through. Finance Subcommittee, Ms. Martin,
Ready to coast.
ready to go.
There you go. So we did have, the Finance Subcommittee did meet on Monday, April 26th. Present were the members of the subcommittee, myself, Mr. Dakota, and Ms. Doherty. Also present was Ms. Clark. And from the administration, we had Dr. Boyd, Ms. Turner, Dr. Hall, and Ms. Desmond. We were called to order to discuss the ESSER, we've been tossing that term around, the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Fund Relief update. So we did go through kind of the process and how the ESSER funds are being used, particularly to augment our student-based funding, which has been, this is now our 2nd year of that process, where we use a weighted system to determine funding for each individual school community, and that there is a school site council at each one of our schools who take an active role in determining how that money will be spent. Again, we'll have more on that in a later subcommittee, so that's exciting to look forward to. But, the basics really were, sharing with us the different weighting systems, the weighting system that's in place, and kind of a listing of the different presentation opportunities that were scheduled to happen and that now at this point have already taken place. So open to my colleagues if anyone has any additional information they'd like to share. Other than that, I submitted as a report of progress.
Okay, thank you. Next is the Facilities Subcommittee, Ms. Doherty?
Thank you, Your Honor. So we met Wednesday, May 12th at 5:30. Members of the committee that were present included myself, Mr. Dakota, Mr. Dillon, as well as Ms. Martin and Dr. Hall, and Mr. Underwood and Dr. Guillory from the school department. The purpose of the meeting was to review the update on our priority list of facility upgrades, which Mr. Underwood gave us where we are at the moment update, which is included in your report, so I won't go into those details. What we were not able to do, Your Honor, and I'm hoping you can help to facilitate that, is we'd like to schedule, I thought members from the city were going to be present because we were going to discuss the motion about collaborating better on some of the improvements of facilities that we're going to do, but there was a misunderstanding. So if you could, Your Honor, try to facilitate with the city a meeting between the school committee, facility subcommittee, and the city, whoever the manager would like to have present. I think that we need to start having those conversations about things we're doing to move forward. But one thing we did talk about, and I'm very excited to report about this, we did Mr. Underwood did some initial work around getting play structures for 3 priority schools that do not have their own play structures. And they were the Cardinal O'Connell Early Learning Center, the STEM Academy. The Rogers School it's our second largest school after the high school with 900 students. And Mr. Underwood has identified a very nice play structure that would fit at that school, as well as the Bartlett School, which has our largest population of medically complex handicapped students, and it would have a play structure that would be for the handicapped students as well as the non-handicapped students. You know, it would be a very good play structure. And in our efforts as a committee, we've tried very hard to look at equity. The idea of being able to get these play structures in, I think, was very important for the facility subcommittee. We did have a motion, which I am going to read, by Mr. Dakota, seconded by Mr. Dillon, with 3 in favor, all 3 of us voting in favor, to move forward with allocating funds for the playground sets. And the idea would be to use funds from our savings this year, not looking at the ESSER funds, and so we'd be looking for information from the school administration about how to do that. Dr. Hall gave us an estimate of about $300,000 to do those 3 sets. That might come in a little bit higher when they're looking at doing the specialized playground that I think we should do for those children, and a larger play set for the STEM because it is such a larger school. But I would make that in the form of a motion to the complete body and ask for your support to move forward with this awesome opportunity to get play structures at these 3 schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? So first, I need a motion to accept 7-1 Finance Subcommittee as a report of progress by Ms. Martin, seconded by Ms. Doherty. All those in favor say aye. Second, we need to approve the motion by Ms. Doherty for the funds for the playground sets, so seconded by Mr. Dakota. Roll call.
Mr. Lay?
Yes.
Mayor Leahy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Mr. Dillon?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas approved.
All right, and then you're all set? Sure, Mr. Dillon?
Yeah, I just had a question. I mean, do we need to have talks about where we're gonna find that money? I mean, you know, I think we should just phrase the motion as, I don't know. It seems like we're pushing $300,000 when we don't know where it's coming from necessarily right now, I guess, is my only concern. Maybe Dr. Boyd?
Yeah, I'm sure we'll identify it, right, maybe even in the ESSER grants.
I mean, we're all in support of it, you know, but
Sure.
we can't just say go, right?
Well, I think that's up to the administration to give us some suggestions of where we take it, but my understanding
Yeah, that's all I'm looking
I
for.
have
we have
an
savings.
I have an answer tonight if the mayor would like.
Sure.
So within the cost savings through this year, the process of budgeting is a daily process. We'll be coming back to you on June 2nd. Actually, there was a question from Mr. Dakota. Ms. DeViso's who's behind you, if those of you that haven't met her, she's been doing some work around identifying instruments and band uniform needs, in addition to the school play sets. So any additional available funds within the cost savings are going to be working through those two areas, first starting with the play sets that the committee first approved, which we do believe you'll find that flexibility due to Ms. Turner's excellent work with managing our finances across. The second area we'll be going to will be Mr. Dakota's request around band uniforms, and then Ms. DeViso knows this is going to be an ongoing conversation around making sure we can build out our inventory of instruments. So she's got a lengthy need there that the committee's going to be engaging in over years, and we're hopeful that we can get to the start of that conversation as well. But we would request the committee's patience until June 2nd for us to bring forward to you those final transfers.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. I just didn't, I hadn't heard any communication on the money scenario, so thank you.
Thank you. All those, so you're all set? So I need a motion to approve it as a report of progress by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Mr. Lay. And 7.3, School Improvement Performance Management Subcommittee by Ms. Martin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The subcommittee did meet on Wednesday, May 12th. Present were all members of the subcommittee, myself, Mr. Dakota, and Mr. Dillon. We were also joined by Ms. Doherty, and Dr. Guillory had facilitated the meeting for us. This was a meeting, and I certainly appreciate it. We had initially talked about bringing this together early in the year, in the January, February timeframe. We had asked for this kind of opportunity. Once the school site councils had gone through their budgeting process, and we had asked for them to have that opportunity to kind of come before the committee to present what their process had been and tell us about how they felt it had, represented the needs of their individual school communities. I do want to say a very special thank you to the schools that were part of this presentation. We did have 4 of our elementary schools, the Shaughnessy, Riley, Merkland, and Lincoln, 2 of our middle schools, the Robinson and the Butler, 1 K-8 school, the Pine Arts, the Laura Lee Therapeutic Day School, and Lowell High School. So we really did quite literally have a cross-section of all the different levels of schools in our district. I can say I, for one, was really impressed with the administrators, the teachers, most particularly the parents who took the time to present to the committee. I will also say it was very well facilitated by Dr. Guillory in that there was a very clear line that each one of these schools was given so that they were presenting in similar formats, which I think made it move very smoothly. So as we went through the process, certainly I think we see in this second year that things have improved, not surprisingly, so that's good, as our school communities are getting more familiar with the process. I do think that we had some small recommendations. I know my colleague Ms. Doherty had mentioned that one key area we'd like to see is for the parents who are on these school site councils, for them to be a little more accessible to the general parent community in their schools. And again, this is no more complicated than creating email addresses so that the other parents in that community would be able to reach their parent representative should they have ideas, concerns. And I know that Dr. Guillory was bringing back to the administration a request to create that based on Ms. Doherty's request and recommendation. So overall, I really did find it to be an excellent presentation, and I was very pleased with the information that was shared, and honestly, the thoughtfulness that I think our staff and our parents had brought to this process, which I think was really very impressive, and I think bodes well for us being able to continue this process as we move forward. Again, I defer to any of my colleagues who'd like to add anything to my report. Other than that, I submit it as a report of progress.
Any questions? All right. Motion by, you have a question? No.
I was just going to say that as of the meeting last week, I went through, and I would completely agree with what my colleague said. The presentations were very well done and very impressive to see the teams at the schools working together. doing this important work for their schools. But the thing I wanted to mention, which Ms. Martin alluded to, was the contact information. At last week's meeting, so it was a week ago today, I think, I only went through 10 schools on the website, but of the 10 that I checked on the website, only one had contact information. We were told at the time by Dr. Guillory that they were creating email addresses so that parents didn't have to use personal information, and that it would be coming. So we've been asking for over a year. So I just wanted to, because I didn't have time to go back on again today. Have we got that information updated yet, Dr. Guillory, or is that still in process?
Dr. Guillory?
It's certainly still in process because the recommendation of the committee was to simplify the addresses that were going to be used. So that evening or the next morning, I did send that over to the team, and they started exploring the possibilities of that. And I think, as Mr. Karabatsos, I think, stated at the Riley, that the schools are doing a phenomenal job, especially during COVID, of making sure that their families are connected. So the principals felt very strongly that their communities are stellar. So I've been actually doing one-on-one evaluations with all the principals over the past 4 weeks, and family and community engagement is one of the standards of discussion. And so I'm very impressed with the work that school leaders and school communities have been doing this year to really thoughtfully and meaningfully engage their families in the process.
Thank you. Okay, motion to accept the report of progress by Ms. Martin, seconded by Ms. Doherty. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, next we got reports of superintendent. We got the budget update. We have 10 or 12 people, the registered speakers, so why don't we go to the registered speakers first, and then we'll go to the presentations.
If I could, Mayor, we've
Sure.
got 3 principals here that are part of that presentation. If we could, with the presentation, then speakers, then discussion from the school committee. I believe the speakers are working remotely and are going to be logging in via Zoom. The principals are here in person, and I would like to make sure that we can get them dismissed at a reasonable hour so we can get them to school tomorrow morning for kids.
They're doing part of the presentation.
They are, Mr. Mayor.
How long do you think the presentation is going to take?
Absent discussion from the committee, if we hold all questions to the committee, I think we can move through it in a matter of 15 to 20 minutes.
Ms. Doherty?
Thank you, Ronna. Is the presentation this 27-page slideshow?
Yes, but we can move through it rather quickly.
Okay, so there's at least 16 slides that are from a previous presentation. So I would want to just skip those completely, and I would say there's probably another, I didn't count the ones that have a minor change, like a number change, or you've added 2 numbers. I just want it, for purposes of our time and the time of the community, I don't think we need to go through 27 slides when we've seen half of them already, or more than half.
Respectfully, Madam Committee Member, that was the Finance Subcommittee that not all committee members were at. I do believe you were in attendance at the Finance Subcommittee. So certainly we can move at whatever pace the committee wants, but we have not presented this at a full committee meeting. This is a presentation that's been done at 2 separate forums that I believe committee members have attended. There were about 100 attendees across. It was also presented at the Finance Subcommittee meeting, but it has not been presented to the full committee. And I believe there are 3 members here that weren't at the Finance Subcommittee. So I just bring that to the committee's attention. Some of this information will be brand new to some committee members.
All right, I think, if you don't mind, I think we will go to the speakers first. They're the people that we serve, so we're gonna hear from them first, and then we'll do the presentation. It's only fair to the parents. So who's starting the speakers? Are you doing the thing, Ms. Phillips?
The first speaker is Diane McLean.
Okay. Can you hear us, Diane? You're on mute. Okay.
Yes, I can.
Okay. Just
Can you
state
hear
your
me?
name and your address for the record, and we do have quite a number of speakers, so if you can limit it to 5 minutes, that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Absolutely. Do you want my home address or my school address?
Yeah, just your name and your home address for the record.
Sure. My name's Diane McLean, and I live at 485 Pleasant Street in Dunstable, Massachusetts.
Thank you. You're all set to speak.
Alrighty, school committee, thank you so much for allowing me to speak today. I've been teaching in Lowell for 27 years. I went to school in Lowell, and my father grew up as an English language learner in Lowell. In short, Lowell is where my heart is. I remember a time when schools in Lowell had more of what was needed for students to achieve success. We had smaller class sizes, paraprofessionals, more special education staff, reading support teachers, and while still not enough, a better budget for teachers to purchase supplies. I knew what supports my students needed, and I was able to leverage the resources and support staff to provide it. I was also invited to join curriculum and decision-making committees, and teacher voices were heard. Then came the lean years, and many positions and budgets were cut. Teachers had more students, subjects, and responsibilities, while support measures were lost. We lost para positions, teacher supply budgets, reading and math teachers. We saw student progress decline. We witnessed students not receiving their IEP services because there were not enough SPED teachers to service all of their caseloads. ELL students were not given the language support they desperately needed. Teachers had to reach more and more into their own empty pockets to provide classroom libraries, teaching materials, and resources to meet the diverse needs of the many different types of students and learners. As a highly qualified teacher, I still knew what every student in my class needed to be able to achieve, but I often felt frustrated as I could not, by myself, give each student what was needed. I watched quality teachers leave for other school systems or leave the profession entirely, discouraged, overwhelmed, and underpaid. Teachers were no longer given a say in any decision-making or curriculum decisions, even though they were the ones in the trenches and knew better than anyone. Now we have the opportunity to make positive changes in our education system. This is welcome news on the heels of the hardest teaching year to date. There is significant money coming in to provide what would make students successful. There are adequate funds for materials, technology, and classroom budgets. There is money to pay and retain quality teachers and paraprofessionals. Teachers and paras spent hours of volunteer times 2 years ago making calls to legislators, sending emails, and attending rallies so the Student Opportunity Act would be passed, because we know what this money, along with the new ESSER funds, can mean to the students and to our profession. Therefore, I'm horrified to see this budget proposal. This, in my opinion, and the opinion of the staff at the Bartlett School, does not help our students at all. Our district doesn't need any more data facilitators, coaches, or administrators. What teachers and students need are properly funded classrooms, sufficient L and SPED support to be in compliance with the education laws, reading and math teachers to provide interventions to students in need before it becomes a significant deficit, paraprofessionals in every class, and social workers and specialists to help with challenging behaviors and to assist with the incredible socio-emotional weaknesses our students have. With all due respect, I don't need any more people telling me what my students require. I need people in front of my students helping to support their diverse needs. As a master teacher, I analyze data every day in using formal and informal assessments. I analyze test results and troubleshoot interventions for my students. Someone at the school department doesn't have a relationship with my students and therefore does not have the insight necessary to problem solve. Bottom line, we need more people in front of the kids providing direct services, not sitting in offices downtown or coaching teachers in school. This is also why, as part of School Site Council, my vote was no for our school budget. There is no question that we work hard for the benefit of our students and families. Lowell Public School teachers were recently praised by Central Administration for our dedication, flexibility, and resilience during this unprecedented school year. Now that I'm asking that you show respect for your dedicated staff by bargaining salaries that are reflective of the education, talent, and skills that you have publicly recognized that will entice and retain new quality educators so Lowell students can achieve. I am also asking that going forward, educators become actively involved in every decision-making process. It goes without saying that all the educators in our city care for each and every student. In closing, I'm asking you to show how much you care about the students by passing a budget that addresses what they truly need. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Diane. Next speaker, Patricia. Is it Patricia Papathan? Is she out there? You just need to unmute. Patricia Papathan, can you hear us?
Hi, yes, I can.
There you go. Okay, just state your name and your address for the record, and you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Patricia Papathan. My address is 237 Oakland Ave, Methuen, and I'm a teacher at the Moody School.
You can start.
Good evening, members of the school committee. The staff at the Moody School would like to respectfully ask that we be included in the discussion about the budget and what we invest in next year in order for our students to be successful. We believe that the educators and staff who work directly with our students would know best how to meet their needs. In our building, 54.4% of our students are ELL students, 10% of our students are in special education, and 76.3% of our students are economically disadvantaged. For the sake of equity, we ask that you for your support in acknowledging that this new influx of money should be spent on positions and materials such as the following to help fill in our students' gaps. Yes? Oh, sorry. Excuse me. A paraprofessional in each grade level classroom to provide more small group support for students, at least one full-time social worker to address our students' social emotional needs, a smart board, or at the very least a whiteboard in every classroom, an adjustment to the classroom supply budget to allow us to replenish the materials we sent home to support remote learning and will never get back, in addition to the materials for teaching next year. Classroom size reduction teachers, reading teachers and tutors, more ELL and special education support, and to not have to share our allied art teachers with another school. We want to make sure that we maintain our voice in this process because we are so invested in our students' success. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your words. Next, we have Melissa DeRoches. Are you there? There you go. Just state your name and your address for the record, and you have 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Melissa DeRoches. I'm from Centerville in Lowell. Whitney Ave is my address. I am speaking tonight as a Robinson School teacher, but I'm also a lifelong Lowell resident and the mother of 3 Lowell Public School students. At the Robinson, we have 3 main points of concern that we wanted to talk about. The lack of direct impact to students that this proposed budget will have. To use the funding to strengthen support staff in the district, and we're also concerned with the longevity and sustainability of these funds. One point of concern is understanding how these newly budgeted positions will directly impact students. Without job descriptions for these and our discussions this year have been on a district level, focusing on equity, anti-racism, and culturally responsive classrooms. Through these trainings, it's become clear that for students to grow, the power needs to be in their hands. Students need the access to resources, the choice to pursue what interests them, and ways to demonstrate their learning that are meaningful to them. This proposed distribution of money does not directly impact students, and it goes against everything that we're being taught as teachers here in Lowell. This is a concern. Putting this $50 million into schools to directly impact our students will strengthen our schools and elevate our children. With added resources, Lowell would no longer be struggling. This proposal before the committee would take money out of classrooms only to pad administrative pockets. There's no equity in that. It is setting us up as a district for short-term failure rather than long-term success. In terms of strengthening support staff, I've heard other people mention one such place that this money could be better utilized would be reinstating libraries in the schools across the district, and or creating new evolutionary positions combining both libraries and technology. These positions were cut 3 years ago and have relied heavily on paraprofessional and parent volunteers to allow children to continue to access books and research materials. And we need to talk about paraprofessionals. That money could be used to pay them a living wage. They are invaluable to teachers and an immense support to our families. Let's honor them and show true equity by providing them with a living wage as part of this new proposed budget. Again, let's not set ourselves up for short-term failure, but let's aim towards long-term success. In addition to the paras and librarians, there is a dire need for additional mental health professionals in the schools to help support social workers. The trauma our students are experiencing and have experienced due to COVID are a barrier to their learning. Additional mental health training and support staff, coupled with community resources for students within the building, would be monumental. As it stands, teachers are shouldering this responsibility along with the 1 or 2 social workers in the building. That is also not equitable. That is, again, a short-term failure, not a long-term success. As a veteran teacher, the longevity of these positions greatly concerns us. If these administrative positions are funded in this year's budget, we're concerned that the funding would not be available in the future. This proposal will not be sustainable. We're in the middle of an incredibly expensive high school renovation project, which we can barely afford. We are being given a gift of $50 million to build a strong educational foundation in Lowell. The money from this grant will not benefit the city. It will benefit a small percentage, many of whom do not or will not live in Lowell if the budget is passed as proposed. That money is meant for Lowell, and it should stay in Lowell. Giving it to administrators means it will move out of Lowell and will be back at this starting point in another 3 years, setting us back even further. As a district, we have the ability to boast that a high percentage of our staff are either from Lowell or currently live in the city. The current proposal for teacher salary increase would not even cover the increase of cost of living. If teachers are not considered in a manner that supports their ability to remain in Lowell, we will lose not only great teachers, but also residents and taxpayers. In conclusion, we urge the school committee to think about the students when they're voting on this budget proposal. Think about strengthening support staff, and think about the future of education in Lowell. This money puts Lowell in a good position to move into the future to really compete with other districts in the state. If this money is allocated to the schools instead of central office administration, we can support our students directly within the schools. We can strengthen support staff and prepare Lowell to be at the forefront of education in the years moving forward. So I thank the mayor, the school committee, and Superintendent Boyd for letting me speak tonight. And I also want to thank my writing and editing team, Marina O'Brien, Nicole Ganji, Michelle Rhodes, and Leanne Newcomb, who worked with me and other Robinson staff to put this together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is Milana Millette? Ms. Millette? Out there. We'll go to Sophia Crawford. Hi, Sophia. You have 5 minutes to state your name and address for the record, and you can start. Just have to unmute and make sure your TV's off.
Sorry. Good
There you
evening, everyone. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Sophia Crawford. I live at 144 Methuen Street in Lowell, Mass., and I work at the Shaughnessy School. So this morning I'm here, or this evening I'm here tonight with a petition for the school committee to reject the 2021-2022 budget. We, the undersigned of the Shaughnessy School, urge the school committee to act now and reject the 2021-2022 school budget proposed by the superintendent. The Shaughnessy is vehemently against this school budget because we feel that all these proposals and new programs and new management hires will have little to no impact on the social emotional health, achievement, and progress of our students. Teachers, support staff, and paraprofessionals have the clearest and closest proximity and understanding of the Lowell Public School children's needs, not people down at Central and cubicles. Give those of us on the front line the power, the funds and resources to do the work we know so well. Yield to us the responsibility of building and educating our most precious students of Lowell, and use these proposed funds to support us, the ones who make the real difference and the most impact. Also, during your last school committee meeting, it was mentioned and brought to our attention that 400 people overlooked this proposal of the budget. Mr. Mayor, was it a committee? Who was on the committee? Was it posted? We'd like to know. Please provide us with this information. So again, I state, the city is receiving a significant amount of monies. Please remember to support our students and teachers. And I ask you, make the difference. I'd like to thank you, and I sincerely appreciate your time.
Thank you, Sophia.
Yep.
All right, Melinda, you're here, so you can come up to the mic. And again, just state your name and address for the record, and then you have 5 minutes. Thank you. Is the mic on? Just, they'll push the button for you.
All right, can you hear me? Okay. All right.
Just speak a little louder or push it
Or
towards you.
push it closer? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, my voice is quiet. I'm Melinda Kellett, and my address is 99 Orleans Street in Lowell. So I am also here as a Lowell resident, somebody who grew up in Lowell. I went through Lowell Public Schools my entire life, and I'm also here representing the Green Edge staff, where we are strongly opposed to the proposal use of funds in the budget presented to you. As you know, monies have been allocated for the 2021-2022 school year, which include nearly 100 new positions throughout the district, many of which are administrative positions with salaries of $100,000 plus. We do not need any more administrators in our district. We feel our students will be best served by resources, more specifically personnel, placed directly at the classroom level. The budget allocations must be spent on direct student supports, teachers, paraprofessionals, and therapists. We know what our students and staff need moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Next, we have Karen Miranda. Are you out there? There you go. So just state your name and your address for the record, and then you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Karen Miranda. I live at 115 Ray Street, Lowell, Massachusetts, and I am an 8th grade social studies teacher representing the Daly Middle School tonight. We, the teachers and paraprofessionals of the Daly Middle School, would like to hear our input heard on the ESSER funding. We please request that ESSER funding be used to reduce classroom sizes and to restore equity in the number of students assigned to each homeroom roster across the district. Currently, there are 5th grade classrooms in our school with rosters in excess of 30 students, making it incredibly challenging for teachers to provide the individualized instruction and to correctly follow the IEP services that our students need. We have classes often that have 9 or more special ed students in one room, and we don't have any paras or sped staff to support them in science, in social studies, or in allied arts classes. Using the ESSER funding to open up more classrooms, to reduce classroom size, and to hire teachers, paras, sped support staff to meet students' needs is critical. Direct instruction and direct contact with students best provides them with a high quality education. We know that students will need direct, explicit instruction next year to target and remediate the gaps and learning loss they've had these past 15 months. This is exactly what the emergency funding should be focused on, recouping the learning loss with direct teacher instruction in classroom sizes that are small enough to enable each student to receive their individualized help. Secondly, another way that the daily school teachers please request that we use the ESSER funding is to directly impact and recover our student learning by purchasing equipment and materials that the teachers need to do their jobs and that our students need to learn. For us, that equipment would include smart boards and projectors in all classrooms, not just in math and special education classrooms. That equipment would include consistent access to online subscription resources like GoGuardian, Kami, Pear Deck, IXL, Edpuzzle, Vocabulary, all of which enable teachers to differentiate and customize lessons for students at their level of need. These enable our struggling students to catch up. They also enable our advanced students to accelerate, and I feel like sometimes we don't acknowledge what their needs quite enough. We really feel like these things have helped this year. Teachers and students need consistent access to these digital tools, so we will need year-long subscriptions. Those cost money. We'd really love to see the ESSER funding make sure that we all have equitable access to those subscriptions. We know that between the pandemic and the implementation of lots of new curriculum units this year, in a crazy year already, that teachers are maxed out. We, myself included, routinely teach online 7 in the morning till 3:30 at night. We go home, we spend another 4 or 5 hours creating brand new lessons for our brand new content that we then have to differentiate because we have 25, 30 students in our room, and I don't have a para, and I don't have sped support, and I'm by myself for the next day's lesson. This kind of a 12-hour workday is not sustainable. Teachers need support so that students can be supported. That support does not come from adding more administrative oversight. That support does not come from adding brand new administrative positions at the expense of hiring more paras and more teaching staff. That support does not come from increasing wages of administration by 5% while we teachers are still working these 12-hour days without extra compensation. That support does not come from adding to the burden of a teacher's workday by requiring 4 more hours of PD after school every month. We're exhausted. That support doesn't come from exhausting educators and neglecting our students' IEP needs and their mental health. We believe that support does come from reducing our class sizes. That support does come from hiring more trained staff to go into classrooms directly with students. That support does come from surveying teachers to purchase the digital resources that teachers are telling you will best benefit student learning. That support does come from hiring social workers and emotional support staff who directly work with students. I thank you for listening to We the Daily School Teachers tonight. I trust that you will take our request into serious consideration. You all know, we all know, teachers are the ones who are working with our students every day. We know what resources they need. Please do what is right by them. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. David Grenner. Thank you, David. Just unmute, name and address for the record, and then you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
That teachers are telling you will
Just want to shut your TV off or your computer.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
My name is David Grenier. I live at 142 Beach Street in Lowell. I'm currently the music teacher at the Sullivan Middle School. My son is a STEM Academy 6th grader. Mr. Mayor, members of the school committee, Dr. Boyd, I'm speaking tonight to ask you to support Jessica DeViso's budget proposal for fine arts in the Lowell Public Schools. As a 17-year veteran of Lowell Public Schools, I wish that I could assure parents that no matter which school their child enrolls in, they'll have the same opportunities as their peers in any other school in the city and comparable resources to kids in other towns. But having taught in multiple schools during my career here, I've experienced inequities in Lowell, particularly in the arts. Some schools have barely adequate music resources and equipment. Others have literally nothing. When my son entered the 5th grade at the STEM last year, the middle school music teacher had one badly out of tune piano that had mice nesting inside of it. That was the entirety of the equipment inventory for 400 students. As a parent, it was painful and frustrating to know that my child's school did not have the bare minimum of resources to provide the well-rounded education he needs and deserves. Teachers of the arts have historically been left to fill these gaps on their own. Myself, I've written grants, I've scavenged broken equipment for reusable parts. For years, I spent my entire income from a second job to build sets and costumes for a musical and to equip my music room. But no matter what sacrifices individual teachers make, the fact that each one of our schools is fending for itself breeds disparity and cannot lead to the best outcomes for any of our kids. Teachers in Lowell should be planning together so that we can provide the kids in this city with a unified, fulfilling arts education with practical applications for every learner. But we can't do that effectively while we don't have compatible tools to work with. However, Ms. DeViso's budget proposal ensures that every school will finally have adequate and equal resources so that we can promise a vital arts education to every child. Furthermore, access to arts enrichment activities for Lowell students such as dance, theater, chorus, and band has been spotty at best. Some schools have very few extracurricular activities outside of sports. My nephew in Boston has access to more arts enrichment activities in kindergarten than my son in grade 6. I'm sure I'm not the only parent or teacher that asks themselves why we're not doing more. But I don't believe we need to be stuck on that question. The Arts in the Afternoon program in Ms. DeViso's proposal will mean more of the arts for more of our kids, regardless of which middle school they attend. Additionally, the district must do all that it can to support the personnel needed to run the Arts in the Afternoon program so that more hands-on resources go directly to the children. The expenditures in this program would be a drop in the bucket and they're long overdue. I think Lowell teachers have been unified and clear tonight about the need for the emergency funding to be spent directly helping students. And I'll say that it's been refreshing that Ms. DeViso has reached out to teachers of music and art, and the proposals have come from conversations with teachers about how we can best serve our students. Like every parent, I've spent the last year worrying just as much about my child's isolation and the social, emotional, and educational deficits that will linger as I have about COVID itself. Like everyone on the committee, I have that concern for all the kids that we serve. The last 15 months has been like a drought. Our kids have lacked the enriching, engaging, supporting environments that they need to thrive, to be with other children, and to discover their purpose and their confidence. We need to fill our kids' cup back up and support the arts. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, David. Next, we have Susan Giovanni. Hi, Susan. Just state your name and your address for the record, and you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
I'm Susan Giovanni, and I live at 234 Nesmith Street, Lowell. Thank you, Mayor Leahy, Superintendent Boyd, and school committee members. I am speaking to you on behalf of the teachers, paraprofessionals, custodians, and cafeteria staff at the Maury. First, please know that we support the decisions made by our school site council, which is made up of parents, our principal, and equally important, teachers. We have full confidence in the quality improvement plan because we had a voice in the decisions that were made.
When you review the Maury School budget, you'll see we were allocated $68,859 of ESSER fund money. That is a little more than 1% of our entire school budget. Because we worked so hard to stretch every penny, we were able to get 1 interventionist, 3 tutors, and a para. However, that only returns us to pre-2018 levels of staffing. We've heard from the superintendent that teachers had input on the ESSER funds. We as a group respectfully disagree. As a member of the executive board of UTL, I hear from teachers across the district. I can assure you that the majority of teachers and paraprofessionals across Lowell Public Schools do not have confidence in the decisions being made to create nearly 20 new 6-figured salaried, non-affiliated positions. In short, we are shocked as well as confused that many of those positions are being considered when so many other school-based needs are paramount. We'd also like to thank the school committee members who suggested putting these decisions on hold, which is at least allowing us to have a voice tonight. For this opportunity to share our expertise, we thank you. Maury is a pre-K through 4th grade school. There are only 4 general, meaning non-subseparate special education teachers covering 6 grade levels. Imagine trying to service 25 students, all with different disabilities, academic challenges, and social emotional struggles. Due to the lack of SPED teachers across the district, teachers are forced to service multiple grade levels. In addition to the direct instruction our 4 SPED teachers are providing, they are also expected to administer all of the evaluations of pre-K students. Each pre-K child requires 4 hours of testing, 2 hours of report writing, and a 1-hour meeting, and even more time to write the IEP. That's at a minimum. We recognize the importance of the pre-K testing. However, in order to do that testing, the time has to come from somewhere. Despite the SPED teachers' heroic efforts, they cannot be at 2 places at the same time. Something has to give, and often it's at the expense of direct student instruction. Over the years, we've advocated for an additional special education teacher and/or a special education para. With the ESSER funding and the Student Opportunity Act money finally coming, isn't it our responsibility as the educational leaders to advocate fiercely for the children we serve? If now is not the time, when is? We implore you to do this, to do the right thing. Spend this money where it belongs, directly servicing our students. Restore our library aids in order to provide children more opportunities to borrow self-selected books and foster a love of reading. Research indicates that reading ability is a strong indicator of student achievement for years to come. For the value of one of the many 6-figure director positions proposed, we could hire roughly 4 library aides. Shouldn't that be the focus of where this money is spent? Possibly bring back computer teachers. Students had to be taught the platforms. That took lots of time. At a minimum, hire more tech people. I honestly don't think it would be possible for teachers to quantify the amount of teaching time that was wasted because we had to fix computer glitches. Children having a working computer is a direct service for students. We need more technicians. And while I have this forum, a huge thank you to all the technicians who work so hard every year, but this year specifically. Money should be spent to develop and establish interventions to address learning loss. That takes bodies in the schools. The very last thing we need is more 6-figured salaried coaches, chiefs, or deputies. I invite the school committee to reach out to teachers. Please ask us what we need to improve the educational needs of the children of Lowell. We would be more than happy to share our needs with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Barbara Burgess. Yep. Hi, Barbara. Just unmute, name and address for the record, and you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
My name is Barbara Burgess. I live at 33 Corbett Street, Lowell, Mass. Good evening. As I stated, my name is Barbara Burgess, and I'm a lifelong resident of Lowell, a former special education teacher, a member of the McAuliffe School Site Council, and I'm currently a mainstream kindergarten teacher. I am speaking tonight on behalf of the McAuliffe School staff. The following is a letter that we have signed and sent to the school committee in regards to the use of the ERSA funds. Dear school committee members, there is a saying that is used throughout the great city of Lowell. There is a lot to like about Lowell. This statement is true, and of all the things that Lowell has to be proud about, their wonderful students are at the top of the list. As educators in this great city, our greatest joy and privilege is educating this amazing group of students. As Lowell stakeholders, we have committed our professional careers to working in Lowell and are using this time to improve our schools and not look for our next position. It is with grave concern for our students that we write to you regarding Dr. Boyd's plans to spend so much of Lowell's ERSA grant funds on administrative positions. Dr. Boyd's plan neglects so many of the areas of great need that exist in the Lowell Public Schools. As this grant money was given to school districts to lessen the negative effects of the COVID shutdown, it is in our opinion that they would be better directed toward budget items that are more likely to have a positive and direct impact on student learning. This would include hiring more paraprofessionals, teachers, special education providers, and social workers. Staff members who have continuous, direct contact with students are the ones who develop the relationships with our children that ultimately lead to growth in areas of development and enable children to reach their greatest potential. It is especially important that our early childhood and elementary programs be strengthened, because these are the students who were least able to benefit from the remote learning experience due to their age. Gaps in the early years of education, when children are developing foundational language, literacy, and social skills, will only widen if they are not filled quickly. Transportation should also be considered, as some of our students are unable to access programs that might give them a much needed boost because their families cannot transport them. Another area of great need in our schools is improving the classroom technology. All classrooms should be equipped with top-of-the-line smartboards, not only in the main classrooms, but within the special education classrooms as well. Sound-filled speakers in each classroom and improved technology for our students with sensory disabilities continue to be needed. Thank you for your time and thoughtful consideration of this matter. It is signed sincerely, the S. Krista McAuliffe School staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's see. Anna Malshi. Are you all set? You can unmute and just state your name and address for the record, and you get 5 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, you're all set. Thank you,
Hi,
Anna.
hi, committee. My name is Anna M. Lashy. I am the art teacher at the Pawtucketville. I live on Skyline Drive in Lowell, Massachusetts. I am so happy to have heard everybody that shared. I agree 100%. I'm the art teacher, so obviously, like, I've been very creative with funding my art program. I know it's not the same across the district. I get a little bit more funding than other schools, and I still only get $1 a student. So I really hope that you approve that new program proposed by Miss they be so. But I have a short little statement from Pawtuckaville teachers, and I'm just going to read it, and that'll be it. It'll take me like 1 minute. So, dear school committee, we at the Pawtuckaville Memorial School are concerned with the proposed allocation of the funds for the next 2 years. We have a strong opposition to the heavy hiring proposal and believe that the monies will be better spent directly impacting student learning. Here is a list of spending suggestions that we feel would better impact the students of Lowell. More paraprofessionals for classroom instructional support, computer and technology technicians or specialists or teachers, materials in the classrooms so that we don't have to spend all of our money, updated technology in the classrooms, SPED teachers, tutors, speech therapists, and L support teachers. We want this funding to directly impact the kids in our classrooms. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Next, we have Crystal Grata. You were right there, Crystal. You just need to unmute. There you go.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Just state your name and address for the record, and you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Hello. I live on 45 Murdoch Street in Somerville, Mass. Thank you, Mayor Leahy and school committee members, for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Crystal Grata, and my comments will be addressing the proposed budget. I am a speech language pathologist who currently services students at 3 different schools from preschool to 8th grade. The Stocklosa, the Cardinal O'Connell Early Learning Center, and due to the pandemic, the Shaughnessy. I am speaking on behalf of the speech language pathologists in this district, and I am here to advocate for the special education students here in Lowell. As you are aware, we have a very large population of students on IEPs. Preschool evaluations make up a huge part of the total evaluations conducted by Lowell Public, about 300 preschool evals yearly, and most of them require a speech therapist as part of their evaluating team. There's been a major increase of preschool-age children qualifying for special education services in recent years, with speech and language therapy being their main need. We need more speech therapists. Lowell also has one of the highest rates of students diagnosed with autism in the state. Our population of special education students with significant needs is booming, and there is no doubt we will need to find space for them. I'm not a math teacher, but more students require more speech therapists, more students require more teachers, more paraprofessionals, and it's no secret that there are not enough special education staff that provide quality and effective services. We are understaffed. And now with this pandemic, for us SLPs, agency positions that were promised in the beginning of the year to help us with services were never filled. Services are being missed, testing is backlogged, and our students are falling behind. We were encouraged to see that 2 new speech therapist positions were added. However, it's not enough. It merely fills the empty positions that we needed 3 years ago to cover the Cardinal School and the multiple classrooms for students with autism that were added in the past several years. So this is what I know for next year. More students with autism means the need for more classrooms. The pandemic has left us with huge learning gaps, especially for our special education students, and we will need to provide more evaluations and more services. And to reiterate, we need more speech therapists, we need more teachers, more paras, more special education related service providers, not more administrators. We have always been told that there is no money for us. There's no money, I'm sorry, there's no money. And now there is. But it is incredibly discouraging, confusing, concerning that the focus of this proposed budget is on adding positions that have little or no effect on the workload of those who directly work
with the students. Please help us directly support our special education students by adding more frontline educators like speech therapists to the budget. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Andrea Regina. Andre Regina. Andrea, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes, I'm
There you
here.
go.
I'm
Yep.
here.
Okay, just state your name and address for the record, and then you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
My name is Andrea Regina. I live at 108 Quincy Road in Tewksbury. I have been a social worker and teacher for over 30 years and have been at the Lincoln School for 10 years. I'm reading a statement on behalf of the parents and teachers at the Lincoln School. We, the teachers and parents of the Lincoln School, wanted to be known that we strongly object to the proposed allocation of ESSER money to fund many new administrative positions at $100,000 each. We are shocked that no teacher or parent input was obtained at the district level in advance of making a proposal for this significant resource. It is our opinion that the school committee should spend this money in a far more impactful way, using suggestions from those of us working with students on the front line directly and daily, us. We know how critical it is to reverse student learning loss. We know there are essential ways to provide students with adequate supports because we see and live their experience firsthand. Here are 3 areas in which we offer suggestions: staffing, more SPED teachers and instructional paras, more ELL teachers to create separate classrooms for newcomers, help for Palak Chia in the ELL office, who presently works alone, serving our substantial ELL population, smaller class sizes to allow for individualized student attention, full-time library aides and math instructional coaches in every building with math and writing tutors, additional social workers to support increasing student social emotional needs, more speech language pathologists to decrease unmanageable caseloads, additional high-quality technology and laptops for parents. Curriculum, teacher input into research-based curriculum to replace that proven recently to be ineffective, i.e. Lucy Calkins, with those that are effective, i.e. phonics or reading programs based on the science of reading, decodable books to foster student strategies to figure out unknown words, books that boost comprehension and vocabulary skills, particularly for ELL students, updated culturally and socially acceptable books for our school and classroom libraries, sufficient amounts of classroom supplies so that teachers no longer pay for these out of their own pockets, teacher-driven PD based on student needs, building and supply needs, windows that open and stay open, eliminating the dangers when they fall like guillotines if not propped, nutritious cafeteria food that students will eat and is sufficient in amount for growing children, custodial supplies that will last all year rather than have to be rationed, replacement of air conditioning since classrooms can get hotter than 95 degrees, copy machine toner that lasts all year and machines that cover printing needs without routine breakdown. For the past 14 months, we have pivoted to teach students with multiple platforms, schedules, and locations. We are with students all day long, remotely and in person, providing us with the clearest insight into wide-ranging and ever-changing student needs. We have learned even more this year about the home lives of our students. With that information, we have gone above and beyond to meet additional social, emotional, and behavioral needs for not only our students, but also their families. We have forged greater working connections with our families and taught ourselves new technology to ensure the best partnerships with them. We have done all of that on more of our own time and expense than ever before, sacrificing far more hours to ensure our students could manage and learn despite all the upheaval during this uniquely challenging time. As a brief analogy, I mentioned HGTV. The transformation of homes from outdated, poorly managed, and ill-equipped to oases of beauty, but also function and safety, astounds me. The process of change begins with wishes and designs and broad plans. The journey toward completion, however, must address the home's foundation first and include a flexible approach to obstacles and unforeseen variables that inevitably arise to inhibit progress and best outcomes. While both designers and builders have a stake in the project and all the best intentions, the nature and value of their roles differs in critical ways. The designers may offer a vision, but the builders uncover the challenges that threaten progress. The builders solve them firsthand. With all due respect, to me, adding administrators is akin to inviting new designers to fix a significant problem with more ideas. However, the tools necessary to secure the foundation comes from the teachers in Paris. Our knowledge and years of direct experience offer the best option for the success that both parties desire. We do not need more designers. We need to provide more tools for teachers in Paris, the builders of the foundation of our houses of learning, our schools. To restate again, administrative positions that have little direct impact or influence upon student learning loss are not the answer. Teachers in Paris have been meeting student needs most fully for years with ever-increasing demands. We deserve respect for our expertise and professionalism. Our responsiveness and dedication over this pandemic year has more than earned us your trust and should not be questioned. Being with students and now families 6 hours a day offers us the highest level of firsthand insight into our students. Please give us the opportunity to share what we know and participate in the decision-making about ESSER funding. Finally, let us quote a comment from Dr. Boyd in a district-wide email from March 19th, 2021. To quote, "I remain confident that if we work together, we can deliver on our fundamental commitment to equity as one district, one community, one Lowell," end quote. To honor and truly follow the words of our leader, and to best help all our students move forward then, we need to be sitting at the table together, engaged in the conversation with you. We look forward to your invitation to do that. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, the teachers and parents of the Lincoln School.
Thank you, Andrea. Laura Katz? Laura Katz? Thank you, Laura. Just name and address for the record, and you have 5 minutes. You're all set to go.
Can you hear me?
Yep, now we can. We can hear
Sorry,
you.
give me 1 second.
Can
you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and see you. You're all
Great,
set.
sorry. My AirPods picked up my thing. Okay. So my name is Laura Katz. My address is 21 Rockwell Terrace in Malden, Massachusetts. So good evening, Mayor Leahy, members of the school committee and administrative team led by Dr. Boyd. My name is Laura Katz, as I've said, and I'm a music teacher at the Washington School. And I just want to start by saying that as a music teacher and a former public school music student, the arts and arts programming are an important way to reach students socially and emotionally, which we can all agree that this last 15 months has been incredibly emotionally difficult for all of us, and especially our students. So I would like you to check out Jessica Daviso's proposal because it really will provide opportunities for students to kind of heal some of those wounds, and it's so important. So please look at that, and she's done a tremendous job getting input from all of us that are involved to kind of find what we need and everything like that. All right, so this past year has been very difficult on all of us. We have been spread thin. We have worked miracles to make sure that our students are engaged in learning. These are unprecedented times, and we've proven to be valuable assets to the Lowell Public Schools. With that being said, there is only so much we can do before we get burnt out trying to continuously fulfill all of the new obligations being placed on us and all of the extra hours to put in and all of the new technology to learn. And every time we get used to one thing, it's changed to something else. And we're constantly in this spinning wheel that never ends. And the kids are in it with us. So for the point of this letter, we have been told that the Lowell Public Schools is receiving a large chunk of money, the ESSER grant. The plan currently is to hire more administrative positions that are expensive to an already top-heavy administration. These are not where positions are needed. We do not need more people telling us what to do. We are professionals and have been killing it this year. We need more people down in the trenches with us, directly working with our students. We need more special education teachers and special education teams for testing so that teachers can focus on their instruction. We need more ELS teachers, paraprofessionals, speech pathologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, social workers, counselors, tutors, and other staff who work directly with students. We need more IT support personnel to support all of the student devices and technology that we've added this year, because we all know that having 3 technicians service all of the schools is not sustainable. It's just not. And they are getting burnt out as well. I can't tell you how difficult it's been trying to deal with all of the tech issues just for myself as a music teacher. It's been insane, and everyone is struggling with this. These are the real people who, alongside the general education teachers and paras, are the ones who make the difference in a child's life. So please, we are asking you to join us in solidarity. Put the money where it is truly needed. Thank you for your time. This is from the Washington School.
Thank you, Laura. Next, we have Kara Gallagher. Hi, Kara. You have 5 minutes. Just state your name and your address for the record, and you're all set to go.
Hi. My name is Kara Gallagher. My address is 5 Evergreen Drive, Glasgow, New Hampshire. Good evening, school committee members, mayor, superintendent. I'm a 4th grade teacher at the Shaughnessy School. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Like many others, I am speaking tonight to address the budget proposal. I'm aware that this is as I am an elementary school teacher, I'm not privy to all of the inner workings of the central office. I do not pretend to be. Likewise, people who do much of their work in an office are also not privy to the needs of educators working with Lowell students' population every day. I am sure that some of the roles and new roles and programs proposed in this budget are necessary. However, I am also sure that if asked, educators would jump on the chance to directly, with administration, find better ways to utilize these proposed funds. Ways that would impact students' academic success as well as their mental health. We need more qualified paraprofessionals in the classrooms to reach our most needy students, as well as our academically gifted students. Paraprofessionals are a teacher's right and sometimes left hand. We need more special education teachers so that servicing students is more than a confusing schedule on paper with service minutes checked off by the second, instead of a meaningful and collaborative plan for achieving the growth that we know is possible amongst our special education population. We need more L teachers. When I became a teacher in Lowell, it was practice that all newcomers would go to a newcomer school so their needs would be met. Now it is common practice that newcomers regularly enter the mainstream classroom, stretching out the classroom teacher as well as the L teacher, who is often running between pre-K through 4th grade classrooms and curriculums. We need social workers. We need social workers. Again, we need social workers. In a school of 500, how is one social worker giving 1/500th of herself or himself to children with significant social emotional learning needs good enough? We need professional development that is beneficial and engaging, the kind of work that inspires teachers to be their best and allows them the capabilities to actually achieve it. This is just the beginning. Allow teachers to have a voice in this. I understand that there is a 3-year plan, and with any new positions, it will be challenging to find ways to sustain said positions. This is why it is even more important to choose wisely. The proposed budget is a letdown to the teachers of Lowell, and moreover, the students. Please consider the reallocation of some of these funds to positions and programs that will undeniably work to the betterment of each and every student that passes through teacher's classroom door. If not now, when? Thank you again for allowing me to share my thoughts with you this evening.
Thank you, Kara. Bethany Welch. Hi, Bethany. Just name and address for the record, and you have 5 minutes. You're all set. Yep, you're all set to go. You just need to unmute.
Good
There you go.
evening. I'm Beth Ann Welch. I live at 16 Evergreen Road, Lowell, Mass., and I'm a teacher at the Riley School. I'm speaking on behalf of the Riley School. We feel that it's imperative to hire teachers, social workers, paraprofessionals, and tutors that will directly work with students daily. These services have been cut over the years through budget constraints, which directly impacted student learning. As you know, we have many students with a variety of needs, such as special education, OT, PT, speech, ELS, and social emotional concerns. With the incoming ESSER grants and Student Opportunity Act funds, we are asking for the supports to be refunded and expanded upon to help support students directly. This substantial amount of money could be used in a beneficial way to fill the gaps that are so needed in our district, especially with this year. We may not get this opportunity again to put forth a better program to support systems for our students. We ask you to consider the upcoming budget. Please ensure that the monies are spent on people, services, data-based curriculum that would directly benefit our students. Thank you for listening to our concerns and looking out for the best interest of our students. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bethany. Your father was the best math teacher I ever had at the Moody School.
Thank you.
I'm sure you're a great teacher too. It was just 2 years ago when I was at the Moody. So, thank you, Bethany. Stacy Thompson.
Hello, can everybody see me?
Yep, you're all set, Stacy. Just name and address for the record, and you're all set. 5 minutes.
Excellent. Excellent.
Thank
Yes. No problem. Hello, everyone. My name is Stacy Thompson, and I live in Ursula Street in Lowell, Massachusetts. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be able to speak to you today about some of the thoughts that I have surrounding these issues. I'm just trying to, for some reason, my screen froze over here. I apologize for that. All righty, so I'm just pulling it up again. So good evening, Mayor Leahy, school committee members, Superintendent Boyd, and to the educators. As a former teacher and a daughter of a 45-year veteran educator, I honor you. I would like to first start off by thanking each member of the Lowell Public School System that was responsible for the comprehensive and thorough budget presentation during the last session. While there are a ton of moving parts, it was made very digestible. With that said, the teachers, the direct service voices need to be amplified so that the youth voice is not diminished. With any budgeting moves, they are your analysts, they are your experts. There is, however, one particular component that did stand out to me, and that was the need for staffing to roll out and uphold a culturally and linguistically sustaining practices program. As we all know and appreciate, Lowell is recognized as a city of diversity, a gateway city. And in this city, there are many ways that diversity is exhibited and even celebrated, from the yearly flag raisings to varied cultural celebrations to our largest and most missed due to the pandemic, the Lowell Folk Festival. Now, the creation of a CLSP program takes the celebration of culture and from an event-driven or focused lens to a lens of equity at work. It fosters inclusivity in curriculum, in environment, in teaching styles, and support for educators. It creates an environment where we just don't learn from books, but we also learn from one another. I'm sorry, pardon me. It also considers different styles of learning in the UDL, the Universal Design for Learning framework. The CLSP program values the respect and affirming of one another in social emotional learning, which, as I've seen, has been mentioned so many times by the educators today and is so, so important. And it leans into critical conscious and social justice teachings. Elevating education to the next level, it does take commitment, and that does include finances sometimes. But let's commit to our students and let's support our teachers as we consider the ways to demonstrate equity in Lowell Public Schools. Thank you so much and have a good night.
Thank you, Stacy. Did you have one of these? Yeah, All right, thank you, Stacy. That wraps up the speakers for tonight. Want to thank all the speakers, everybody that sent us emails. We all got plenty of emails today and all week, so thank you for your input. Dr. Boyd, if you want to continue with the budget update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we can grab the update on the screen. I also want to appreciate the input from speakers. I think the speaker input reinforces the need to share the full presentation. I would say several input from community members that we can say 100% are included within. $12 million direct allocation to school sites. 54% of the total positions within are all recommended and have come through school site council input. The remaining 2 buckets of positions that you'll see within relate to a new school design. That's our virtual school, which has come from direct feedback from the community as well as the data that we've garnered through remote learning. A 3rd bucket is around staffing to support our Renaissance schools. You have 2 principals here that can share with you some of the collaboration that led to the intensive support that will be provided to our Renaissance schools. So I want to make sure I can provide that direct feedback. You've been heard. That has been included within. $15 million of facility upgrades. I appreciate the speakers that spoke about the need for air quality and temperature control within classrooms. $15 million is allocated within. Digital resources, over $2 million within this plan for digital upgrades. We heard from some speakers that spoke about the need and the importance of interactive whiteboards within their classrooms. There was $4 million already invested in technology that includes $2 million this year, current fiscal year, within those interactive display investments in classrooms. Those will be installed this summer. Collaborative professional learning investment you will see within this presentation. It is there. And extended learning time you will also see within. Before we go into, I do want to recognize that there are 2 areas of feedback we've heard which unfortunately cannot be implemented with fidelity throughout, not because of dollars, but because of other variables that we're finding. We did analyze them, we did assess them, and we have heard them consistently, and you heard them again here. Expanding transportation. A desire of ours was particularly to expand transportation for our pre-K students. Unfortunately, it's not a question of dollar investment, it's a question of availability of drivers, which you've heard previously from our Director of Transportation. That's continuing. An investment and expansion of transportation to our pre-K learners, not a question of priority, not a question of dollars, simply an external variable outside of our control. The second significant investment that we have looked into is a question around reducing class size. A reduction of class size has found to be most effective within the literature for our earliest learners. That's grades K through 3, 4 grade levels at each school. The literature says in order to bring about improvement due to class sizes, it requires a significant reduction, not 1 or 2 students, significant reduction. The recommendation often tends to be within the realm of 15 to 1, 15 students within an early learning classroom. That literature goes all the way back. Maybe some of you are familiar with the Tennessee STAR study. That tends to be the one that's referenced often. It's been further validated across. In order for us to reduce class sizes down to 15 to 1, we're talking about upwards of over 80 teachers across the district. Now, that is going to run us over the course of 3 years a cost of $20 million. You heard me say $15 million to facility upgrades. Well, certainly if we can reduce class sizes in a sustainable way, that might be a higher priority for overcoming learning loss than facility upgrades. So why is it not there? Well, we don't have extra classrooms at our schools. So what we would end up doing is you would end up having to create temporary spaces, satellite classrooms, separate classrooms, which we've already looked into during the course of the pandemic, and unfortunately we moved that out during the course of the pandemic. Also, there's not a lot of literature around temporary classrooms as a mechanism for reduced class size. I've also had the experience working in Florida at the time of when the state was at the back end of rolling out its reduced class size. It takes multiple years to roll out a logical, meaningful, and sustainable reduced class size program. even if we had space, we don't have that time. This is a 3-year grant. So then the next question that we then looked into was, what if we look differently and we look at a co-teaching model? We have experience with co-teaching, a co-teaching rollout, particularly within our special education programs, but you'll hear from any school leader of the immense undertaking in order to redesign programming around a co-teaching model. And again, we have 3 years here. Now that doesn't now account for recruitment and hiring and support and development of an additional 80 to 90 teachers across the district. What we found and what we often find in the long-term rollout, and why does it take so long to get that impact? Well, now we're hiring 90 brand new teachers. What the literature is also very clear on is teacher quality improves significantly year 1, 2, 3. You don't get the benefit of a student of the true quality of a teacher until the end of year 3. Now remember the timeline of this grant. So if we assume that with that number of teacher recruitment, the vast majority of them are going to be first-year teachers, which I don't think is a faulty assumption at all, by the time we're truly able to benefit and our youngsters are able to benefit, now you're already at the end of the grant cycle. So what ends up happening there? What ends up happening is we will reduce class size down. So from a perspective, certainly as a teacher, if you gave me the perspective, can I serve 15 students better than 22? I'll tell you all day long, yes, I can. But now another class doesn't have the benefit of the expert teacher that one class has. They get the brand new teacher that then needs to be supported over multiple years. And if this was a long-term, meaning a strategy we're going to in perpetuity, then yes, it's a worthwhile investment, as some states have, Florida, California, and others. But this is a 3-year grant cycle. So now we're talking about an investment of $20 million that by the time we're actually able to get there, now we're actually talking about the end of a fiscal cliff where we just invested $20 million in additional staffing that we know we're unable to sustain. So those two, the pre-K and the class size reduction, I'm certainly happy to share and discuss and go through in more detail each of those areas. And if that's something that we want to pursue as a district, I'm not confident in bringing to you a recommendation that we can do those and deliver on those to meet the expectations and the demands of our community outside of a written plan. We can certainly put forward a beautiful plan on paper that says we're going to do those things. We didn't come to the conclusion that it would turn into or translate into actual practice, translate into real services for families. The other, as we get into this, and Ms. Turner will share with you a true breakdown, I would welcome, because it feels a little bit like a redo of where we were in August. I've certainly received all of the same calls. I've had many of the same conversation that you've received, and remember where we were in August. There is some misinformation being put out, in some cases, misinformation that goes out and looking like it's official, that people are receiving. Part of that misinformation, that somehow there's a lot of administrative positions here, creating that into almost an extra swear word of administrator. Number one, I want to say I've got several administrators here. I value each and every one of you. And number two, there's only 8 supervisory positions within this budget that you will see accounts. Total staff allocation is 38% of the total ESSER. Of those staff positions, 4% are supervisory level positions. It is simply not true. But yet I want to make sure that I recognize our speakers. They did receive information that suggested such. So I would, again, as we did back in August, welcome anybody that's putting out that information. Please, if you could be the person or the organization that gives me a call and meets with me so that we don't have that type of misunderstanding going out that does create a lot of anxiety and a lot of concern. The last question is around staff input. $12 million allocated directly to school sites. It reflects 54% of the entire staffing allocation here within the budget. That was handled through our school site councils. That money was allocated directly to schools. One school referenced $68,000. That's based on the student enrollment within that school. Other schools received significantly more. Over 270 staff and parents weighed into those school site council meetings. There were also 2 additional forums, one with staff and one with families. Approximately 100 people participated in those forums As well, every central department went through a zero-based budgeting process that allowed the staff within those departments to weigh in on what was needed and what would best support students. You have in this budget only one recommendation that doesn't come out of that direct feedback. That recommendation is around supporting our students right now that have dropped out of school and are on no one's ledger. Right now, we estimate over 350 young people within our community who are school-aged, yet not attending school, not enrolled in school, and not registered for the next year. These youngsters are the youngsters that we identified as former dropouts that are currently, we believe, in need of being able to be engaged and brought back to an educational environment of some sort. The data is clear on the life opportunities that are afforded to a youngster that has a high school degree versus those who do not. That's not data that I think is new to this committee, nor is it data that I have to go to lengths to share. There are over 350 young people that we have to support. So you will see within this recommendation, as you heard from me before, direct outreach liaisons, the building of a student resource center. Unfortunately for these young people, over 350 of them, these are youngsters who are not at risk, they are in risk. And these are youngsters who often don't have a voice at the table within these discussions. They don't have a voice because they're not attached to a school. Our schools do provide extraordinary advocacy for the youngsters they have. These youngsters are not known to any of our schools. They're not on our ledger. So I will identify that and provide that to the committee, that comes from our data and it comes from providing a voice to the voiceless. Otherwise, every recommendation within has come through feedback, direct feedback, and you can hear the data here. I would suggest and request again of the committee, it was provided to, same request, if you recall, back in August. As you get the questions in, please share the accurate data, make sure we're giving everybody within our community, because it is our responsibility to share with them the accurate data, and we'll continue through the process of vetting and communication throughout the course of this process. And I do want to appreciate everyone. I think the last that I think we should share that we heard requests, we can't use, unfortunately, grant dollars around salaries and compensation. It is inaccurate to suggest that any of the dollars here are being used for any compensation increases. That's just factually inaccurate, nor unfortunately can they be used for salary compensation for any staff members, and I know that's been some requests that we've received within. There is the last point that you won't see yet, but we are working through right now, which I believe will have actually a formal recommendation around what our community school model will look like. That's been some feedback across through these, through our forums, the staff and community forums. Mr. Skinner, who's sitting in the back bench, has been charged with being one of our points, in addition to Ms. Phillips, on realizing that possibility and that opportunity for children, which again came through the feedback we've received. It came, unfortunately, in a way that we haven't yet been able to formalize those plans for the committee yet, but we will be formalizing those rather shortly, and you will hear how those plans have already started to take hold within some of the supports that we have for our Renaissance schools already on the docket. So with that, Ms. Turner, if you can, and then our principals will be able to share with you when we get to the slide about the Renaissance supports. And thank you, principals, for sticking with us. And again, I want to give a big thank you to our community. I appreciate the deliberative discourse. I do believe that that we all get better as a result of collaboration and collective thinking. So thank you. With that, Ms. Turner.
Sure, Ms. Doherty.
Sorry, thank you, Ronnie. Before we begin the presentation, I just wanted to state for the record that I received emails from 16 schools, some of the ones that we didn't hear from tonight, obviously, signed by more than 620 individuals in opposition of the ESSER spending plan. In addition, I received emails in opposition signed by 22 speech and language pathologists and 35 social workers. a total of more than 675
What's that?
staff across the district. And my point with that is community engagement is not just presenting webinars, it's actually listening to what our frontline staff tell us they need. And if we make the assumption that they're getting misinformation, I think that's dishonoring their work. Obviously, our meetings are public. Everything about the budget has been on the website. The presentation, maybe it was just presented to the Finance Subcommittee, but it was presented on television. It was presented in numerous formats. I'm happy to see it again if we have to. But I think that this point about we heard from people, I don't think it's truly accurate, because clearly 675 people put their name on a letter and said, I didn't feel heard. I wasn't part of this process. And I know from sitting here, we've been through meetings where we had to eliminate all the library aides, or I was an outspoken parent when we eliminated all the elementary science teachers, when we eliminated a para in each first grade classroom. Now they're sharing, they've been sharing for a while. We know what it's like to sit through those uncomfortable meetings when we have to eliminate positions and people are saying, please keep my job, it's important. We are looking at an unprecedented opportunity to invest in some of those resources. And the idea that we couldn't put a para in every K-2 classroom again, that immediately reduces class size. You have a first grade teacher with a para next to him or her all day, that's having an immediate impact on that classroom, on that teacher's work. So like I said, I think that it's important for people to realize, my colleagues to realize, that we heard from a lot of experts tonight, and they sent me emails, and I imagine they sent all of you emails, and they signed their names to them. And that's not always easy to do. And I just wanted to make that heard when we talk about community input, that this is what I heard tonight, and there's a lot of good suggestions in here, and I hope that we will take that seriously. But please go on with the presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Dillon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can we get on the same page here? Are we all going to comment now, or are we going to do the presentation? Because,
we're going to do the presentation.
when only, I don't know. Are we all going to get TV time right now, or what are we doing? Can we keep things consistent?
We're all entitled to our opinion, so if you want.
Well, I understand, but none of us are commenting right now. We're supposed to be going into the presentation.
Okay, but
Well-
other questions? All right, Jack.
But we're supposed to be going into the budget presentation, so
we're gonna go
nobody
into
else
the
decided to
budget.
comment. You're the only one that gets a comment
You
to
can comment.
summarize exactly what was just said. Thank you.
Mike, you can,
All right.
all right.
Thank you. Well, let's, Mr. Mayor, I will go into the presentation, but respectfully, Committee Member Doherty, I'm honoring everyone's voice. My message about misinformation was provided directly to me, so I'm not
Let's get
assuming.
into the budget right now, because everybody's going to have their own opinion on this, so why don't we turn it-
Mr. Mayor, we will certainly do that, but these conversations here, unfortunately, are what is shared back to me as being particularly around administrators and where the administrator number is. So it's important for us to also make sure that we're having transparent conversations here so that it's not misunderstood, misheard, or misreported in other venues. And that's part of the work that I think we have to do collectively as a superintendent school committee team. Again, it's not an assumption, nor is it something where I'm trying to misunderstand intentionally what someone said. It was brought to me with evidence, and that's what I'm sharing here so that I can make sure I can support, again, everybody within our community of 120,000. Ms. Turner, if you could.
So I'll try to make this long presentation as quick as possible, but also thorough for those that didn't hear it. This first slide is just summarizing everything with the ESSER. It's showing the forecasted revenue. It shows that we had ESSER 1 of $4.7 million that was already spent. ESSER 2, which is $17.8 million. ESSER 3, which is still an estimate, that's $40.2 million. The application process that we have to go through in order to get the ESSER funds would be to create the plan that we're currently sharing, vet with the school committee and the community, prepare the actual application, including the budget, narrative, and other documents. We have to wait for approval, get school committee permission to spend, and then we set it up in Munis to start spending. Some of the eligible expenses for ESSER would be the same as ESSER 1, which is any allowable activity under ESSA, which are your title grants, improvements to school ventilation systems. But when we do that, even if we put it in the grant application, we have to get approval for anything over $30,000 from DESE. So it's going to be additional applications for anything we do with school ventilation. We can address unfinished teaching and learning loss. We can prevent, prepare for, and respond to impacts of COVID-19, any costs that relate to that. Stakeholder engagement, we did vet with nearly 400 parents, teachers, principal, and community partners, and we did that through the school site council process, community forums, public hearings, and then the school committee input. And thankfully, we had some more input tonight by hearing the speakers. This, I won't read this. This is just the guide and principles that we had for ESSER 2 and resource allocation. We did get community input, and with research-based information, we realized that we had to still make decisions. We had too many expenses, but not enough revenue. So we used the strategic plan as one decision-making tool, research-based, focus on equity, community involvement, and responsible fiscal management. All of those things were what we considered when making the decisions of what to put on this final plan. This is just a slide that shows you what the core beliefs, fundamental commitments, goals, and strategies are for Lowell Public Schools. And this is the summary slide that helps us understand what we're spending the ESSER dollars on. The five investments that we plan on investing in order to spend the money and address learning loss but still stay off of that funding cliff would be to extend learning time across the district, support teachers to improve classroom practice, which is professional development, support students with strategic school-based interventions, meet the non-instructional needs of students and school communities, and support the homeschool partnership.
Pause there for a second, because another question I hear is on direct services. The instructional core here is a clear definition. It's an accepted definition across education across the country. That the instructional core is the interaction between students and teachers around the content. Every aspect of this are direct services to the instructional core, supporting teachers, supporting students, supporting the content, and supporting the interaction of those three areas. Keep going.
So again, those were the 5 investments. The way this presentation is set up so that I don't share redundant information, but I do want people to be able to look at the presentation and understand what they're seeing. Of these 5 investments, we'll show you why it's needed, what you'll get from the investment, and how much the investment costs. The spreadsheets are all just the actual transparency of what year it's going to be spent, what grant it would be spent from. So I won't spend a lot of time on those at all. This is just a summary of all of the different 5 investments: high quality teacher, strategic intervention, extended learning, non-instructional needs, and parent-home partnership. This is the first of the investments, extended learning time for students. Just as a point out, the red underneath each of these is showing you how it's directly tied to the strategic plan that we approved last year. So extended learning time for students, it's the additional learning time that's needed within the standard school calendar and outside of the school day that's required to account for COVID-related losses in academic time, which included a reduction from the standard 180 days to 170 for all students this current year. And that's in addition to the inconsistent daily attendance and engagement levels for students who experienced difficulty in the remote environment. This extended learning time would cost us about $8.7 million. What you would see for that $8.7 million is 3 full days per year of additional learning time, which equates to 9 additional days over the next 3 years, hoping to get back the 10 days. That would be through reducing the 6 half-days and making them into 3 full-time days of additional time. The after-school program would be expanded. The summer program would be expanded to include programs at every school in the district. So that's how we would address the extended learning time for students.
Pause for a second. So direct feedback here. understood that additional learning time and extended learning time has been on the top of any type of discussion that any of us have had. The feedback we've received is not by increasing the number of school days and not by increasing the hours of the school day. Here what you have is a recommendation for an investment of approximately $9 million that accomplishes that. Additional school days. If you recall, now 180 days were reduced to 170 for all students. Let's go back to 2 years ago. There were 2 weeks prior to us standing up our remote services for students at the very beginning of the pandemic, where we were all under the impression nationwide that perhaps 2 weeks would be the time where we might be coming back to school. So there has been significant lost time beyond the disruptions to remote learning just by fewer school days. This accomplishes additional time based on the feedback received without adding to your school calendar, without adding to our school calendar, and without increasing the hours of the school day for every student.
So this is the next investment, supporting students with strategic school-based interventions. So the impact of COVID-19 has been found to be more significant for some students and more moderate for others, with that impact ranging from academic challenges to social and emotional wellness, requiring school-based resources that can be tailored by school communities to meet the individual needs of each child. The investment here is approximately $14.2 million. Something you would see with that would be the additional school-based positions that were added through the Fair Student Funding process, which would include 7 additional social workers, 8 additional teachers, 20 additional paras, 1 instructional specialist, 34 tutors, 15 SEL tutors, 1 data analyst, 1 associate head of school, and 1 library media specialist, and additional school-based allocations of approximately $800,000. These decisions were made by the schools through the Fair Student Funding process with the additional $4 million investment that we gave for this year.
All right, so pause there again. This is an important recognition. All right, $4 million per year. So this is a 3-year investment horizon. So $4 million per year, that's $12 million. What we heard was a need for additional tutors. You will see here, all right, there's 49 tutor positions that are here and allocated. 1 year across 3 years. Social workers, teachers, paras, you see that there, right here within this slide. And again, it's important to recognize there are some communities that have taken the full batch. In this community, we can do that, 1 year of investment. That's not our recommendation. Look at it over time for sustaining investment. The feedback from the committee, as we've heard, is that it's going to take multiple years. We would concur, and every feedback we've received is that it's going to take multiple years, hence the mapping out across multiple years.
So another thing that you would see with this particular investment would be a full-time virtual school established for students in grades 7 through 12 as a permanent addition to the district's alternative school portfolio. So we're going to continue offering a remote learning option for secondary students, recognizing that a subset of these, the students we teach, perform at a higher level in a remote environment. This virtual school will serve up to 400 middle and high school students. The next investment would be to support teachers to improve classroom practice. Relevant and meaningful professional development for teachers has been consistently found to improve student learning, with direct correlations documented between teacher quality and student performance across multiple studies. Well, this investment would be approximately $12 million. What we would see with that $12 million would be 34 hours per year of additional professional learning time added for every teacher and instructional support provider in the district. This would total more than 100 hours over the 3-year grant cycle, and this would be to support improvements in teaching and learning. Additional support would also be provided through professional learning for teachers and staff to embed culturally and linguistically sustaining practices within the curriculum. It would also support the implementation of a collaborative coaching and learning model. The next investment is to meet the non-instructional needs of students in school communities. Other factors beyond classroom teaching can have a significant impact on whether students have access to meaningful learning. School communities which have historically required additional support will need even more resources as they work to reconnect and re-engage the students. who have been disconnected from the learning environment. Some of the school buildings are going to require physical upgrades to create classroom environments that are more conducive to learning and learning now and into the future. That would be about $20.6 million for this investment. And what you would see with this investment would be a student resource center established to recruit and re-engage students who have dropped out of school. It would be through direct outreach to students and their families, while also coordinating and aligning services in the alternative school portfolio to better meet the needs of our most at-risk youth. We would also see school climate specialists added to every elementary, middle, and K-8 school in the Renaissance Network.
All right, so pause there. This has been the area that I've received the most questions. And in some cases, this has been described as somehow being ancillary to the support for students. This came through feedback with our Renaissance principals. So Mr. Cardesi, Ms. Dowling, with the leadership of Mr. Skinner, if you can share with our committee why this position is vital to the support and direct support for students.
Thank you, Dr. Boyd. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and School Committee for having me. I do want to speak on the school climate specialist position. Over the past year, we worked with Dr. Guillory, and now we're working with Mr. Skinner on this position. I believe this school climate specialist position will connect all four facets of education, starting with the student, the teachers, the parent, and the administrator. My data alone last year at the Stoklosa, just to give you kind of an idea of the outreach that the teachers did, we have over 5,000, there was about 5,200 journal entries on behalf of the teachers with some type of outreach or intervention. I believe this position with targeted support will assist in offsetting that. For the students at the student level, I believe this position can take those low-level infractions, implement SEL initiative that's aligned with the district, restorative justice practices, and also run some circles for those students that are experiencing mental health issues and some of the issues caused by this crisis. For the parent level, the communication and outreach, I think, and I firmly believe it could be endless with this position. If this position is used correctly, as administrators this year, we did over 200 and I want to say 20 or 30 home visits just at the Stoklosa alone, if you extrapolate that across the district, especially for the Renaissance schools. This position could also help that. It'll also allow administrators, assistant principals, and principals to be true instructional leaders within the building, which is ultimately going to improve teaching and learning. I firmly believe that. And this is also part of our turnaround practice, our TAP 3 and our TAP 4, which is directly related to school climate and culture and targeted intervention supports. I believe that you're getting a lot of bang for your buck with this position, especially the dollar amount. So I'm in strong support of this position.
Bridget Dowling, principal of the Robinson Middle School. I'd like to just say ditto to everything that Jim said, but I completely agree. So our work around this has to do with using the data gathered by the DESA assessment, our attendance data, our discipline data as our foundation for this position to work with families, work with teachers to support students in breaking down those barriers and making connections with families and students. So we're bringing all of the facets of the community together and build upon what where we're already at. And I also want to agree with him about giving us more time to be the instructional leaders that we can be in the classrooms and to support the teachers and students in that way. Thank you.
So again, I want to reiterate, I am fully aware that 400 people does not reflect the 120,000 people within the community, nor does it reflect the over 2,000 staff members. So always welcoming more input, but I think it's also important to reassure the community that every aspect of what you're seeing here has come through the feedback that we've received, as well as an analysis of those things that we can't do. So Thank you again, principals. Appreciate you sharing that experience. Ms. Turner.
So the next investment for non-instructional support would include investments in the HVAC system. Also, a significant investment in our multi-year digital learning plan. We have made considerable investments with the savings from last year, the budget for this year. With additional savings coming this year, we plan on offering that as a suggestion as well. But we have to maintain that. Now that we have the one-to-one device opportunity, we have to maintain that in the future, so that demands that we put an investment from ESSER each year for those smart boards and Chromebook replacement for students. The next investment is support in the homeschool partnership. The connection between home and school has historically been found to be an important factor in the success of the students in the classroom. That partnership became even more critical in the remote learning environment, and it will continue to be essential as students transition back to in-person learning. This investment is approximately $2.7 million, and what you would see with that would be a Parent Leadership Institute created to increase family literacy. We would also put bilingual family liaisons at every school in the Renaissance Network. The next slide is the next few slides are just trying to show you with a visual how we're spending the ESSER dollars. As you can see here, year one, we plan on spending 41%, but we're going down each year after that so that we can wean ourselves off of the ESSER funds.
Again, we're open to feedback on this. It's important to recognize that this is spending across 3 years. Not every community has made those determinations. Certainly we can look at it differently. We believe that it's the most fiscally responsible way to look at it, and you can see here that there's a natural progression down over time.
The next slide shows ESSER spending by investment category. So again, these are the alignment investments to the strategic plan. You'll see that we're spending 21% for supporting teachers in the classroom. We're spending 24% for school-based interventions that are things like school-based investments with fair student funding. We want to put 15% in extended learning time. We put 35% in meeting the non-instructional needs, which that would include the big HVAC investments. And then 5% would be support in the homeschool partnership.
Right, the big bucket there, if you go back, that non-instructional needs, flexibility around the 15 million. So again, you're not in an either or scenario. You can be in a both and. If the committee feels like that's too high amount for in the facilities, you certainly can move it down within others. But as you're going to see here, there was intentionality here to non-personnel related investments where possible, again, to avoid that fiscal cliff.
The next slide is showing ESSER spending by personnel and non-personnel. We have 38% in personnel and 62% in non-personnel. The next slide is showing administrator positions versus non-administrative. There are 4% in admin positions and 96% in non-administrative positions using ESSER funds.
All right, and I think it's important here, again, as I mentioned, definition. If you use a definition that our administrators union refers to an administrator, I don't think that's the definition that people are using. However, that is the definition that's brought back to me at times. The definition here is supervisory positions, because what I understood is people were talking about direct services, that if somebody is supervising or monitoring or supporting the work, then that's the question that people have. So here the definition is around supervisory positions, where you see it's in 4% of the total of the 38%.
So the final slide is just showing you the next steps. We want to balance the ESSER spending plan with final grant amounts. Again, we still don't even have ESSER 3, so we may get $3 million additional at that point. We want to continue collaboration with city agencies and community partners to further refine investment opportunities related to the facilities, professional learning, and extended learning time. We need to prepare and submit the grant application to DESE, and we cannot do that until we have a final spending plan approved by you. Following approval of the final grant application, we'll need to post jobs with school committee approval through the permission to post process. We'll interview and hire highly qualified educators for all newly identified positions. We'll then post requests for proposals and complete all remaining required steps in the procurement process for all contractual services. This is not on the presentation, but also in your packet, you'll also find all the job descriptions that you requested for all the new positions.
Thank you. And again, to reiterate, I too would assign my name to the 672 names if it was shared with me the way that it was shared with those who called me up and who I've talked with. I can agree completely with them. I would oppose the plan if that's how it was shared with me. That's how here what I would suggest and ask and encourage. We look at it in its entirety, and yes, we can make adjustments, and we fully expect to make adjustments over the course of the 3 years. Our recommendation has been that we view it as a 3-year plan. I would expect that the school site councils will make individual adjustments each year. There's not an obligation that they use the $4 million each year, nor is there an expectation that it'll only be $4 million. The commitment here is that it will at least be $4 million each year as the committee can reassess the grants as they come in. So with that, Mr. Mayor, that concludes the presentation on your budget update.
Mr. Dillon?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Dr. Boyd and Ms. Turner, for clearing up a few things. I guess I agree in a few ways with some of our callers. You know, I do feel like we're stretching ourselves more and maybe trying to be too creative and adding things when we could be strengthening what we programs that we already do have that are suffering, because we've been underfunding programs for a long time around here, and I think that things like resources for our staff, supplies, you know, athletic and arts programs. We have an arts presentation coming up, and you know, we've been underfunding that program for years, along with athletics. The tech department we've been underfunding for a long time, and we are putting more and more work into their lap, and we are going to only need them more in the future. And you know, special education and IEP work, you know, and you know, those things alone constitute places that we could maybe use those dollars for, you know, resources and affirming the programs that we have been underfunding for a long time. And so I agree with that sentiment. Absolutely. You know, I think we might be trying to get too cute with what we're doing and too creative when, you know, these funds, let's strengthen what we got a little bit more maybe. I think that needs to be a little bit more of our focus. And so I certainly agree with that whole sentiment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clark.
Thank you. I'm going to start by talking about the professional development and the academic coaches. Tonight, we started the evening off with a student advisory meeting where we heard from our top performing and engaged high school seniors, with college plans for next year. And when we asked them about remote learning, they spoke about disengagement. That was their first comment. And when we asked what was the key factor in engaging, what differentiated some classes from others, they said teachers. There were different levels from teachers. The energy, the creativity of teachers, the topics that they could relate to, and the structures of the way they ran their classes. And I am not saying that teachers didn't do the best job that they could with the tools that they had in this very challenging year. But I do want to point out that a major investment in this plan is about investing in the teachers that we have. And that is so critical in impacting all of the students across this district, which I think is another part of, we see that there are some students that are thriving, continuing to thrive, and we know that there are some students that are not being served and they are not thriving. When we talk about starting a virtual academy, that requires resources. It requires someone to run that program and run it effectively. It is not meant to serve all of our students, but is an additional tool to help serve students who are thriving in that environment and do not thrive in a traditional classroom in person. It's important that we are serving those students in a way that they are going to be successful. it provides an alternative option for our families that know that their students do better in that environment. When we talk about Parent Leadership Institute, we know that there are families that are not engaging in schools and with the way that we, as a traditional US-born student who went through a US education, might do. And I'm saying that because I think going through the school district, you at least have an experience and understanding of what this environment is like. But we also know that there are people who even went through the system and didn't have a great experience, or didn't have a model in a family member that may be engaged in a way that we want our families to engage, which ultimately is supporting our students. And I believe that our teachers want our students supported by their families. We want families to engage. So wouldn't teachers feel more supported if they had increased family engagement? Wouldn't our students feel more supported if our parents were more involved and engaged? Well, we need to educate some of our families on how they can do that and why it's important. So a Parent Institute leadership is something that's brand new, but so important to the success of our district, to the success of our students. I would argue that all of these services are really directly supporting students by supporting our teachers, by improving the experience for our students. You know, from our climate specialists, the SEL, certainly the CLSP work. It's about engaging and teaching, supporting teachers and families and students. All of this impacts students ultimately. And I really do believe that this is an opportunity to bring Lowell to the next level. And I support the work that has gone into creating this plan. I very much appreciate the work that all of our employees are doing, our staff, our teachers. It's hard work, but I really do see there's a ton of value and a ton of opportunity here. You know, the hope is eventually we don't have turnaround schools in our district, that we don't have a Renaissance network, but those schools specifically need additional supports, especially at this time. And we are investing, we are putting the necessary money behind that. We're investing there so that the hope is they move out of those spaces. And I believe that's possible. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Dakota.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would we all be in agreement that our school site councils should be an accurate representation of our communities? Would we be in agreement with that? Would it be possible, this is a rhetorical question, but I would think that someone could possibly answer this, but could we have a televised combined meeting of all of our school site councils under one roof, and having a frank and open discussion about what their individual needs are, what can we supply them in terms of their needs, and see where we go with that. I don't know if that would be an exercise in futility. I don't know if it would be helpful. I'm just throwing that out there as an idea. I do have another question, however, where you indicated there were 350 students children who are not in school currently. I'm wondering what that number was pre-pandemic. Was it the same number? Was it less, more, or do we even have those statistics? I think that I don't know that anyone has that answer just yet, and they'd have to look it up. But in our conversations and listening to what has been said, I think the students from K through 5, this is my belief, have been the most severely affected by this pandemic. We need to dedicate more tools to those grades. It's my opinion that those grades are the ones that our kids learn those skills that they are going to need going forward into upper middle school and high school and college. That if we don't provide that to them, and that a lot of that has been missing because of this pandemic, that we need to make sure that that is given to them going forward. And so that I think that if we don't do that, I think we are seriously shortchanging them. And I know we could do it, I know as long as there are resources provided, but that's what I'm not expecting any particular answers at this time, but I wanted to make those comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dillon, then Ms. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, no, well, you know, I mean, the kids that we had in here earlier, we're talking about their experience with education through remote learning. Is that correct? Yeah, and, you know, they talked about all the different experiences they had, and, you know, it was, you know, really depended on one teacher to the other. Well, it might have depended one day to the next with a particular teacher, the way that things have gone over the pandemic. And, you know, comparing what's happened over the last year to, you know, how well our teachers perform is just very short-sighted, I believe. Our teachers just need to get back into the classroom. You know, and professional development is great, not necessarily professional development that is implementing an entire new system that I imagine they've already had training on, and if they grew up in this city, then they've had plenty of training on it. You know, so we're talking about different things here. You know, and professional development, that's a whole heck of a lot of professional development, and I think our teachers are more excited to get back into the classroom and do what they always do. You know, they needed professional development around remote learning. And so just tacking on, you know, brand new programming and trying to implement new curriculum with all of this professional development, I think is not as beneficial to us. And strengthening programs that we already do have and already underfund, and providing more opportunities for our kids to experience in the city is the route that we really should be moving in. And, you know, the virtual school program, yeah, I mean, you know, I care as much about as those kids about anybody, but, you know, 350 kids, I imagine that is due to the pandemic, but, you know, what are we doing now to bring those kids back? Our alternative schools have got to be performing outreach currently to do that, and I just don't necessarily believe that 400 kids in this district are best served through a separate school with separate staff right now when, like I said, we have programs already going that that could use that investment. So thank you.
If I could, just a point of clarity, there's 400 and 350. We're not anticipating that the 350 students would be best served through the virtual school. That's just coincidental, the two numbers.
Okay. Well, you know, I mean, we're still creating a separate group of staff, you know, for something that, yeah, it sounds great. You know, it's something that could be great for us to use for and really catch every single one of those kids that that are out there. But we're starting a new wing, and this is for recovery money. And we, you know, I don't know that we need recovery in every room, in every building, with every kid. So, and also, I mean, going back to the arts and athletics, I mean, you know, let's talk about two better things for our kids' minds right now and their physical health. The fact that we just went through this whole pandemic, and we're not focusing on getting our kids back in shape and getting our kids' thoughts centered and focused is a crime. There's nothing else that we should be focusing on more than teaching our kids about their body, how to take care of it, and how to center their mind so that they can survive this crazy world that we're going to throw them into. And, you know, I think I think we're trying to do too much. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, I think we're presented with a lot of opportunities and a lot of challenges, obviously, in this situation. I think it's evident just in our comments this evening that there is, I think, a pretty disparate understanding and excitement about different aspects of this budget. I think, there are aspects of it that I find particularly compelling, and I can recognize that other members have other areas that they find equally compelling. The purpose of not our process tonight, but our process, I think, moving forward, is that we are going to need to find the balance amongst all these competing agendas. Again, it is the flip side of a process we've gone through for 20 years, where we were constantly subtracting. We're now in this rare opportunity where we have the chance to be adding opportunities, adding supports, adding whether it's programming or additional professional development, but we do need to be just as thoughtful in that process. And I think that, again, the move in putting a lot of these kind of programmatic initiatives and the staffing that goes along with them, putting them into the suspense account, has allowed us the opportunity to let our budget move forward and yet still give us the opportunity to actually review all of these both initiatives and staffing moves in a way that I think can be, again, thoughtful and comprehensive. I was certainly struck by our speakers tonight, struck by the emails that I've received, and I think that, in thanking those individuals in those school communities for reaching out, I find it incredibly valuable and helpful. So I am very thankful that so many people took the opportunity to share their opinions, their own personal opinions, as well as those based on their school communities. And I'm reminded in these conversations that, we're saying that we had budget hearings, we've had finance subcommittees, we've had sessions with staff and parents and all these ample opportunities for these teachers and these staff members to be able to share share their opinions and react to the budget as it was proposed. But if the reality is that there are over 400 individuals who've signed on to these letters questioning some of the decisions within this budget, if they're saying that to us, that alone is proof that we haven't done appropriate outreach. And it exactly parallels the approach we take with parents. We could stand here, and there have been some who have, and said that there is so many opportunities. Parents can get involved any way they want. They can talk to a principal, they can talk to their teacher, they can do this, they can do that. These are all the standard ways that parents, have an opportunity to engage with their school. And yet we sit here over and over again saying that our parents don't engage. So the problem isn't parents. The problem is that we haven't built a system that allows them to engage. So we are in a very similar situation here. The problem is not teachers. The problem is that we haven't given them an opportunity. We haven't found the way for them to be able to engage with us from that frontline level to be able to inform some of these decisions. I have looked at a lot of these different program initiatives. Some of them I am thrilled about and can't wait to implement. Much like my colleagues who have their own that they are very excited and enthusiastic about. We need to have those conversations when we have comprehensive plans in front of us from the administration telling us exactly what the professional development project will be. What will the virtual academy look like? What will the CLASP look like? These are all really important initiatives, but they need to be fleshed out for us to be able to make thoughtful, well-reasoned decisions. So again, I look at, we're voting on a budget tonight to approve, but I think ultimately we're really just beginning this process, particularly with the ESSER funds, and it's going to be important work, and it's going to be work that requires this committee and that requires the administration to be thoughtful and considerate and be able to recognize that we are not going to necessarily come in with the same priorities, but be able to respectfully have these conversations so that the decisions we're making are in the best interest of our district and certainly of the city as a whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Lay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Two great things that I see today. One is that we all recognize that the students need help, and we are here trying to find the best way how to help the students. And the other great thing is that we have the money. I think Dr. Boyd got got so much money that it made the previous superintendent jealous. And now we just find a way how we spend the money. Listening to these speakers tonight, pretty much their concern concur with my concern, is that we should find a way to help the students directly. And for me, I feel that the superintendent, with all his intent, is not ignore the fact that the students need help. So this extra tutor, extra professional, paraprofessionals, etc., social workers, those are the things that I think superintendent has addressed. Whether that's enough or not, I don't know, because he knows a lot more than me. For me, I know that I feel that the students in a gateway city like Lowell, a lot of the immigrants, family and low-income families, they speak their native language at home, and this pandemic pretty much put their English learning in falling behind in that, so I think that the student that fall into this category does need help, and I hope that extra teachers and extra spending that we have, we should concentrate also on those low-income family and immigrant family. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Artie?
Sorry, I just would like a little clarification on the slide, and it's actually one I've seen before, but I wanted to make sure I understood it correctly. Slide number 11, the one that talks about additional school-based positions, where it lists 7 social workers, 8 teachers, 20 paras. So is it correct that those were school site council determinations? Okay, so when we look at the list of what the school site councils told us they needed from their piece of the ESSER fund, so it was $4 million spread out between the 28 schools, right? So one school that spoke tonight, I forget which one it was, said we had $68,000 to spend, and this is how we spent it. What was the most that one school got? Was it $1 million? No.
I think Lowell High received the most, and it was over 400,000. But just so you know, when the school is referencing 68,000 from ESSER funds, they may have received, and I don't know because I don't remember which school it was either, but some schools may have had an increase of 100,000, 68,000 of it could have been from ESSER. So because the school committee, when we talked, when we originally presented this, we originally suggested 2 million and 2 million, but because it was not a, we didn't want to do that without having the Chapter 70 numbers, we decided to do the full 4 million from ESSER. But that does not mean through the regular equity piece that they didn't get additional dollars.
More than the 60.
From
I guess
Student Opportunity Act.
My point is, except for the high school got the most at 400,000 that they were able to, as a school site council, decide what they wanted to spend it on. And somebody chose a data analyst to spend their money on?
The high school.
The high school did, okay. So I guess my point with that is if we look at what the school site councils told us with their limited budget, because they didn't have as much to spend, right? They chose paras, tutors, social workers. I mean, I think that's what I was hearing a lot from the staff tonight. And maybe this speaks to something that Mr. Dillon said earlier, that those frontline people that they see really helping their work. And as Mr. Dakota said, the K to 5, the younger ones, with getting another para. Like my son had, his first grade teacher had a full-time para. My daughter did not 3 years later, and we've never gone back to it. That those are some of the basic things that, as we look towards finding that balance, Because if you look at the list of positions you gave us, and I believe this came from you, Ms. Turner, of the summary of ESSER additions, this list, well, I counted 9 that are 100,000 or over. So that's where you get, I mean, whether you call, how you define it administrator or not, when you've got 9 positions that are paying 100,000 or more, 110, 130, 120, that's where the teachers are saying, how is that going to impact my ability with these students in front of me? That's all I wanted. So I just want to so I do understand what this slide was telling us. This is what the school site councils picked with their extra money, whether it was ESSER or extra from Chapter 70. And I think that is the purest in terms of the teachers and the parents with the principal, with the leadership, looking at what's going to directly impact our job in the work we do with kids. Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Dakota, can you come up?
Mr. Leahy.
Thank you. So my comments, so we're gonna approve the budget number tonight, and then this is going to personnel subcommittee, right, for discussion? Okay. So the only comments I had is, you know, we did have a lot of speakers tonight. We got a lot of emails, a lot of letters this week. And I totally agree that I think that money has to go back into the classroom. I agree that some of the initiatives that you brought forward would be good things to have, but as you said, we have a 3-year window. We're not going to change parents' attitudes in 3 years. So the money needs to go back in the classroom. We talk about engaging students, learning, teaching, learning is the core of our work. Well, put a para or 2 in every classroom. I mean, the teachers know what they need to do. They don't want, I don't think the kids want extra time on learning. They want more quality learning while they're at school. As other members have said, they need to get out of school. They need to go out and exercise. They need to participate in sports, in band, in music, in theater. They need to do that. They don't need more time after school learning. They need to get out there. They need a well-rounded education. And we need to make the classroom smaller. Yeah, we can't afford to build new schools and have twice the amount of classrooms, but we make the classroom smaller by putting more people in it. You know, paras, we need more paras, more reading instruction, more tutors. You know, the teachers, the people that spoke tonight, very passionate. They understand the work that needs to be done. We've fallen so far behind over the last year and a half, and they get that. They did their best. The students did their best. We heard from a group of high school students today, the graduating class of the government, and you know, they said they had a hard time. They weren't engaged as much as they were. And to whose fault, I don't know. But you know, over the year, they said the biggest thing was we allowed them to shut the cameras off. Well, of course they're not going to participate if you allow them to check in and then not have a video on and participate in the class. So we've got to make up for all this lost time over the next year, and we have to have quality instruction in the classroom and let the teachers do their jobs. Some of these administration jobs, these administrative jobs that we're going to add or look at, I mean, are they going to be based in the school or downtown? They're going to be based at central office. I would imagine
Some, but not most. And so I want to remind, again, there's only 8 positions here that are supervisory level positions.
Right. So where do they report to? They go to schools?
Well, the deputy CAO would report to Ms. Desmond. Some of the others, one of the others is a virtual school principal. So if we stood up the virtual school, they would be the principal of the virtual school. The Parent Leadership Institute hasn't been designed, but someone that's running the Parent Leadership Institute, wherever the design of that program, that's where they would be. The same goes for the Student Resource Center. We need to have someone that supervises that work. Wherever we stand that up, that's where they would be. But you only have 7 or 8. So what I was suggesting is this, the messages that I've received in seem to mimic some of the concerns that were shared, which is a discussion about somehow the fact that this plan has a skewing of a significant number of administrators and raises for administrators. That's just not accurate with what's here. So there is 7 or 8 of them. Most of them are not. Most of the staff here, the vast majority of them are direct within schools. How you define administrator, that seems to be, we need to come to terms with how we define it. Here you do have 8, I believe, supervisory level positions, Ms. Turner, when we counted them up. Depending on what their role is, that depends on where their work location is. The Parent Leadership Institute and the Student Resource Center come to mind that we haven't created those, nor the Virtual Academy. When we create those, they would be stationed wherever we create those opportunities.
Okay, I mean, some of that stuff would be great, but I don't know how else to say it. This is Lowell. As other members have said, my kids have gone through the school, the public system, and we've cut and cut and cut. So why aren't we looking to open up libraries? Why aren't we bringing back more tutors? Why aren't we looking to bring back more maybe the computer teachers again, or something like that? I mean, we cut so much out of the system over the last 12 to 15 years that maybe we should be going back to the basics to bring some of this stuff back. Don't forget, we have partners here. If kids drop out, we talked about the 300 kids or so that have dropped out of school. Well, we have agreements, or we have partnerships with the Middlesex Academy, UTEC, the Adult Ed. I mean, all these groups, these partners, that's what they're there for, to help us. Our alternative high school. So we have partners here in Lowell that we should be working with. We can't take on this burden ourselves, and we need to spend the money, I think, where people are asking us to spend it. And I appreciate your plan that you put forward, but, you know, the overwhelming response we got from teachers, administrators, and parents this week are telling us that this is where we want our money spent, and I think we need to listen to them. So I look forward to the personnel meeting when we go through these job descriptions and we go over to make decisions on how we're going to spend that money.
Appreciate that, Mayor, and that's good feedback. And I do think I've heard special education support, strengthening what we have, additional early learning, physical fitness. I think Ms. Martin's sentiment is a great summary of it. No matter what we do, there are disparate voices and disparate needs. I often say, you know, there's no way to view the superintendency as a popularity contest, because there's going to be criticism no matter what the decisions are. Ms. Doherty and Mr. Lay both said it's the reverse level challenge you've got. Now you've got to say, to how do you prioritize spending? So anything right now, what you have is you have a 3-year framework. You remove from, once you add something, it's going to take away from something else. There's not the possibility here, and I'm reiterating it multiple times because it is the level of feedback that I got that I was trying to help people through. This is not skewed administratively. There are no administrative raises. It's not expanding the central office. That's just not what's there. And I do know that feedback's out there. I want to make sure that when we're having these discussions, as we did tonight, it's based on what's here so that we can make improvements over time. And I think we'll definitely get there. I think what we've experienced over the course of this year, the deliberative discourse is valuable, it's positive, and through the disagreement, we get to better outcomes over the course of time. You don't have any kind of time horizon in front of you, with the exception of June 2nd, in order to make sure that whatever we're standing up next school year can be actually stood up. So that's about making sure that we post the jobs so that we can hire in so that they start on July 1. And again, for the community, this is not part of the budget. The budget's the general fund, which we discussed on Monday ad nauseum, I believe. This is the ESSER plan around the grant funding, which we still haven't yet received the final numbers. So the continued discussion is valuable. And again, I welcome anybody for any additional discussion, phone calls, conversations, the informal conversations in the hallways of schools. It's all valuable, all part of the conversation. And again, I really welcome the conversation and discussion. I think it'll get us to a better place. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I just, one other thing too that I noticed, and this has never changed since I've been involved, SPED, why aren't we looking at transition plans for these kids? Some of these children, they have an IEP, they go through their whole career, 12 years on an IEP, when we could help them transition off of their plans. I mean, that's another thing that would save us money, give these kids confidence, engage the parents, and I haven't seen that ever looked at, and that's something that I went through for 12 years. Every 3 years, they kick you off the plan, and then you have to go back and fight for it. And everybody says, well, you're good because you have the services, but there's no transition plan to get these kids off their IEPs, That's something else that would save us money, and that's something we should be looking at, opening the libraries, transition plans for IEPs, putting more paras in the classroom just to take the burden off the teachers so they can get that one-on-one with a lot of these kids. So I think this is a good conversation that we need to continue and we need to have, and appreciate all the input tonight. Thank you. Sure, Ms. Martin.
I just want to make one last point, and I'll certainly try to be quick. We are on a specific kind of timeline, and I know that we are looking at the job descriptions as a key part, and that we'll be going through those with the personnel subcommittee. But I do want to just reiterate something that I had kind of briefly mentioned. It is important that we get full-blown proposals on these different program initiatives, whether it's the virtual school or, again, there's a number of them. And I just want to say that I am anticipating not being able to make decisions about that until I have those in front of me. So, I just don't want it to come as a surprise, that we really need to have kind of, and it doesn't need to be staffing doesn't need to be attached to where the person's going to sit. That's not my concern. But really having a clear picture of what it is these initiatives are going to do, so that we can really be able to discuss it, again, thoughtfully, not just the staffing component of it, but the actual program initiatives. Because again, we're going to need to make some difficult decisions, and the better information we have, the better our decision-making is going to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Clark?
Thank you. I'd just like to point out, there were 16 speakers tonight. 2 of them were Lowell Public School parents, one of which was the music teacher that spoke on supporting the arts, period, did not mention the budget, I don't believe. And I'm not saying that I didn't receive a handful of emails from parents, but that is not the voice that I heard or the emails that I received majority from. And I think I would like to reiterate, if there was some misinformation out there, which in me reading the emails that I received, I believe that there was, because I could read some things that seemed not accurate, didn't align with the presentations that we've had before. So I just want to point that out, that I was not hearing from parents specifically on some of the needs. The majority of our comments had been from teachers in both my inbox and tonight. Also, I want to also mention that there have been virtual listening sessions geared to building racial justice in our school community, hosted by Ms. Phillips' team, hosted by Lowell Public Schools, and facilitated by Dr. Pitsamai Oy, who is a parent of a 6th grader, a community member, and also a faculty of the College of Education at UMass Lowell. These sessions have been translated into at least 5 languages. There was one that ran this afternoon where 40 participants, I believe, were there, and the first session that I went to had, I think, over 80. And I believe there are 3 of each session. So these are voices that are not being listened, they're not calling in. I'm not necessarily getting emails, but they are participating. They're being invited and asked to participate, and our team here is meeting them in the spaces that they can be and are asking them to participate. The translation alone, providing people with an opportunity to hear it in their language and participate in their language, is so huge. And I don't necessarily feel that we are listening. If you're not seeking out those voices, they're not necessarily calling in. But we need to hear those voices. We need people speaking for those voices. And I do believe that is what the team and what is being proposed is incorporating those voices in. Those sessions specifically are about learning, listening, and taking action against all forms of racism and discrimination within our community. There are 2 more sessions. One's tomorrow afternoon for the middle school age, and one is on the 27th for the high school. The sessions are recorded. I highly recommend that community members go and watch these sessions. They are powerful, they are important, they are voices that we need to listen to, and they're not necessarily reaching out in these ways because these are not necessarily forums that they feel comfortable participating in. I would encourage them to do that, to speak there. At another parent leadership institute that was run by CBA, that is where I heard a parent specifically say her son has done so well this year learning in a virtual environment. He has not had to take his ADHD medication this entire year. That is a voice that's important. We need to serve that student. That parent knows what's important for that student, and not being on medication is important for that family. So offering a virtual academy, when I said that that was something that the district was talking about, she was so appreciative and grateful. That is a voice that is important for us to listen to. It's important to listen to these voices of people who speak languages that are not ours. And so I just ask my committee members to appreciate that not everyone is making the same level of noise at this level, but it doesn't mean that their voices are not important and that their students are not important. I know that that's not what folks are saying, and I certainly value our teacher voice. It is so important. Everyone is doing good work here to try and meet the needs of our students, but we need to be sure that we are seeking out and listening to the voices that are not always the loudest in the room. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Lay?
Thank you. I just have an afterthought question. Supposedly, Superintendent, through you, Superintendent, we give all these library aides and paras and social workers as requested, and everybody's happy now. But the funding that we have lasts us only 3 years. What happened at year number 3? If we give everybody what we want today.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Lay. If I could, Mr. Mayor. So there's that 3-year horizon is a critical part of our planning process. So it's why you see that 62% of the money is geared towards non-personnel items, because those are items and investments that we won't have this recurring cost and we won't hit the fiscal cliff at the end. At the end of 3 years, there's 2 possibilities. One, we'll see that these are valuable long-term investments that can roll within our Student Opportunity Act as that money continues to grow. 2, it'll be discontinued and the individuals within the jobs can move into jobs that otherwise exist within the organization if that's their desire as an individual. Those are the 2 possibilities, because this funding will not continue. We know it's done at the end of 3 years. But I will also say, I don't believe there's a decision in front of the committee that will make everyone happy. It's just not possible within what we have here and the immense amount of need. It's also important to recognize, and I think what I shared, everyone's input is valuable. When I shared misinformation being shared out, because if that was how it was shared with me, I too would have signed on to the ledger here. That's misinformation around the amount of administrative positions and administrative salaries that are somehow the dollars are being used for that. That's why you can't use these dollars for salaries. It's the 3 years, a salary continues to grow and it'll continue to be a financial obligation of the district, which is why these grant dollars cannot be used for salary increases, no matter how much desire we may have as a community to increase for some of our very underpaid staff members. We just can't use grant dollars for that. So we've stayed away from that investment entirely. However, there is a need for additional staff in order to support learning loss. So there are some staff positions here and critical staff positions in order to support students, and those are going to be the 2 possibilities. Either we're able to continue the investment with the Student Opportunity Act as that continues to forward to the district, or the position will be discontinued and the individuals will be given an opportunity to move into a vacancy that does exist within the district for which they're qualified.
All set? All right, next report, afternoon in the arts program overview.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Desmond will open the report, and I want to welcome Ms. DeViso, our Fine Arts Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Boyd. Within our strategic plan, the focus has been to review the fine arts program, to look at how we have been supporting the program and ways to improve our practices to create more of a pathway from our K-8 programming to our high school programming. So Jessica Daviso, the Fine Arts Department Chair, reviewed the existing program and has a presentation for us tonight on some of the suggestions that we have for improving the K-8 pathway to the high school to hopefully provide opportunities for students in the high school to grow within the fine arts program. Much of what Ms. Daviso will explain, you are all familiar with, but she does want to have a presentation for the public that also explains where we presently are based on her research and where we would like to head. So I will turn it over to Ms. Daviso.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, if we could take a vote now to go past 10 o'clock, I would hate to interrupt you in the middle of your proposal. If we take that vote now, then recognizing that this will go beyond that, then we don't have to jump in the middle. So I'd make that as a motion.
All right, if we go past 10 o'clock, we go to executive session also, that includes it? Does it include executive session or just this meeting? Huh?
I didn't even know we had executive session, so I would have been out the door either way. But okay. I'll leave it to the committee. At this point, I think we just need to extend past 10 o'clock and let the presentation go.
All right, so, motion to go past 10 o'clock, ruled by Ms. Martin, seconded by Ms. Doherty. Roll call. Mr. Lang?
Yes.
Yes, for me. Ms. Martin? Yes. Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Mr. Dillon?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. I'm Jessica DeViso, the Fine Art Department Chair and Pre-K through 12 Arts Coordinator. Over the course of the last 2 years, I've worked to identify the greatest needs in the Fine Art Department, which led me to develop this program proposal. It seeks to increase opportunities for participation in the arts while reducing the inequities that stem from an ongoing lack of funding, resources, and access across the district. The slide deck that I'm sharing with you tonight highlights the current state of the Fine Art program and my recommendations for improvement, which focus heavily on increasing arts opportunities for middle school students. A thorough program review revealed that middle school arts programming had not been serving the needs of our students for many years. The middle school band program was especially broken, serving fewer than 40 students this academic year. The pull-out model of instruction meant students had to miss other classes to participate. And some arts content areas, like orchestra, were not available at all, while others, like dance and theater, were only available in some school buildings. This lack of access meant that most students in LPS weren't able to learn these important skills, which foster creativity, innovation, critical thinking, self-confidence, perseverance, and the importance of practice in achieving mastery. My program review also revealed a profound lack of funding across all arts content areas. The visual arts, dance, show choir, and theater content areas have absolutely no budget K through 12. These programs rely entirely on building-based funds to operate, which means they simply do not exist in most schools across the district. There is a small district line budget for instrumental music, but it simply isn't enough to sustain a program in a district as large as ours. But it doesn't have to stay that way. There are successful models for quality arts enrichment programs like the UMass Lowell String Project and even our own 21st Century program. Using these models as a guide, we can create a robust, rigorous, and equitable arts program for the students of LPS. To be successful, the program will require an adequate budget, and that budget needs to be available every school year. What's clear is that we have to try things in new ways to produce better results. Our students deserve these opportunities, and we owe it to them to provide these experiences, which are readily available in most school districts across the state and across the nation. This program proposal costs the district nothing in school year 2021-2022. By utilizing the funding from 3 vacant band teacher positions at the middle school level, we can develop and launch an innovative arts enrichment program that will serve all students grades 5 through 8. This program will include a range of arts content areas that are currently not available to everyone. The next slides describe what the afternoons in the arts programming will look like if we get your support to offer it next school year. Students will get bused from each middle school to Lowell High School 2 times a week to participate in the program. This is important because, like athletics, the arts require collaboration and teamwork. The arts function best when kids can be part of a larger group. We'll have a district-wide band, show choir, and orchestra where students will learn to play as part of an ensemble and perform for an audience. Students will receive snacks and a free food power pack so they have the energy that they need to participate in this evening programming. Afternoons in the Arts will have a budget to ensure its future success. The program will have oversight as well, since this proposal includes the creation of a new full-time position, Director of Arts Enrichment. The individual in this position will teach 3 classes during the school day at Lowell High School and have release time to organize and promote all of the afternoons in the arts programming. This individual would act as a site administrator when these activities are taking place after school. It's important to me that this is an affiliated position, since the individual in this role will be teaching. The next slides outline how the budget will be allocated to meet the needs of the programming. $140,258 is needed for the program itself, and this includes all of the things like busing and consumable materials and supplies, and the pay for instructors. This proposal also includes several district line budgets that are not tied to afternoons in the arts programming. These line budgets support arts content areas pre-K through 12 that currently rely entirely on building budgets to operate. The existing instrumental music line would remain totally intact, and we would add lines for content areas that are currently unsupported, like visual art, dance, theater, and show choir. These are not to replace the building budgets, but to supplement the small budgets that are already in place. These line budgets would allow us to have things like exhibitions, concerts, competitions, visiting artists, and more. This slide is a growth projection over the next 5 years. You'll notice our current state is close to 0 in most cases. By year 5, will be serving close to 50% of the middle school body. This slide describes the programming we'd be offering in year 5, including various band, dance, show choir, orchestra, and visual art experiences. Again, this proposal would put in place programming to give LPS students a chance to participate fully in the arts, while also giving teachers the resources they need to do their jobs well and an ongoing stream of funding to ensure its continued success. Although this program places an emphasis on the arts at the middle school level, it will also have a big impact on the high school as well, because more 5 to 8 students will be participating in the arts, and we will effectively be creating a feeder program for all of our high school electives. This will help students gain the advanced skills that they need to be successful in college and beyond. It will help us work towards our collective goal of creating more equitable educational experiences. Again, the cost of this program proposal is $0 in year 1, but if we do launch the program, we need to plan for its future growth. By year 5, we'll need an additional $62,750 each year to pay for the cost of additional instructors and materials to support and expand the expanded student enrollment. In crafting this proposal, I worked hard to keep the costs minimal for the sake of creating a program that utilized only existing resources. Despite the fact that this program costs nothing to launch in year 1, that doesn't mean that the arts department doesn't have additional needs. I provided Dr. Boyd and Ms. Desmond with quotes for materials and supplies that would enhance the arts classrooms pre-K through 12. They're available to view at the link provided in this presentation and also available in these folders that I provided to each school committee member. These instruments, supplies, and teaching materials would go directly into the hands of students and help repair the learning gap that has taken place over the last year and the inequities that have gone on much longer. It would also help create equity across the district by ensuring that students and teachers have the supplies needed to foster learning in the arts. You can view the entirety of the proposal at the web link that I've provided in the presentation. It does include all of the budget information and a breakdown of all costs. I'm also happy to answer any additional questions you might have.
Mr. Dillon?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't necessarily have a question right now, but I want to say bravo. This is what we're talking about. This is, it seems like you went out of your way to say, okay, we're not getting any money. I'll show you how we can make it happen anyway, which is pretty admirable. And this is a great presentation. I'd love to give you a lot more money than what you even asked for, to be honest with you. But
I can provide additional quotes.
yeah, you can give me all the quotes you can. It's fine. But no, yeah, definitely. The presentation was incredible, and it was a creative way to, by taking away almost, you're adding to the district. But I'd like to see you funded even more and supported even more if we could. But thank you for the presentation. It was great.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Yeah, Ms. Martin and
Yep.
Mr. Dakota.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And thank you very much for, making it this late to do the presentation. So we appreciate that very much. I just want to say, I support this initiative right out of the gate. So for anyone who's on the fence, I'm all ready to jump. What it does remind me of, though, and I know we've talked a great deal about how the arts and how athletics are kind of a two-pronged kind of tool that we have in terms of providing students with outlets, with opportunities, with exposure to new and exciting cultures and other experiences. And as I'm listening to your proposal about how you're literally making something out of nothing, how you've come up with a proposal that takes, these existing these two positions and turns it into a district-wide initiative, I mean, that is remarkable, and thank you very much. But on the other side of things, it's not appropriate. We should be making these kinds of investments in the arts, and they should be at a level of parity with where we're making other investments in the district. And what it makes me, just as you were presenting it, made me think, the impact that Title IX has had because a legislative body made a commitment to make that investment and said that sports for girls was just as important and needed to have the same kind of investment as sports for boys. And it changed the landscape of scholastic athletics across the country. Here's an opportunity where this body can move forward with what's been proposed absolutely in the upcoming year, but we could make a true commitment that says we're going to take this time to compare so that we can see what we're spending, and there may be another area we want to include in it beyond just arts and athletics. That could be something else that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head. But say that these are things that we value and we value equally. And this committee, this community is making a commitment that, for the dollars we spend in athletics, we're going to spend an equal number of dollars on artistic opportunities for our students. So I would just put that forward as, here's our first step, but we really could have an opportunity in beginning this project that we could do something far more substantive. And again, it will ultimately, in many cases, it comes down to money. It comes down to investments. If we think this is important, we'll invest in it. Personally, that's how I feel. I would like to see us make that investment. Not a commitment we need to make tonight, but something that we really should, and working with the administration to kind of come up with a proposal that we might be able to endorse that would stretch beyond us sitting in this room making decisions about next school year, that really could set a goal for our district for the next 10, 15, 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dakota.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, it wouldn't be a pretty sight to see a 72-year-old man jumping out of his skin with excitement that this is being proposed and being met with such great support. I can't stress the level of importance of having a feeder system, and that is right across the board in terms of choral work and instrumental work. For years, yes, a long time, while I was at the high school, it was kind of like an island that catch as catch can. If you had some kid who was really interested in singing, we might get you to come in if your guidance counselor said you had room in your schedule. There weren't that many middle schools doing choral work. That's the problem. That's part of the problem. We need to have that equal offering right across the board for all of our kids across the entire city, not selected like this middle school and this middle school. It's got to be everybody. I can remember teaching at my first high school teaching job. There were 1,200 kids in that school, and I had 10% of that student body in my chorus. I had less than 1% at Lowell High. That's tough. That's tough. And I would have gladly taken 300 kids in my chorus. I would have. But they just weren't there. Again, if you haven't sung since 5th grade, why would you think about joining a chorus when you get to the high school? It's just gone out of your ken. It's just not something that you'd want to think about doing. This provides us with those kids going forward. And I'm beyond excited. I think Mr. Vizo has come up with a great plan, a great projected plan. We need to support this wholeheartedly. And wholeheartedly, I mean with money. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Ms. Clark?
I just want to say thank you. I think this is very exciting and innovative, and I know my daughter will be very excited because She was, I think, has been talking about starting a petition that Mr. Skinner might know about at the Daily Middle School for a dance team. So this is, I think it's great, bringing students together from across the district to have an opportunity to do this at the high school together it's just fantastic, and I'm excited to see where this goes. I agree. I think this is just a starting point. Talking and planning and envisioning what this could look like in 10 or 15 years is really, again, this is a unique opportunity that we should jump on, and thank you.
Just don't tell anybody you're an administrator.
Thank you.
I
So this,
won't, no worries.
so this proposal you came up with, and it's a 3-year plan initially, you said?
I do have projections that go out 5 years for this proposal.
All right, and this is just a proposal that you brought tonight?
It's in your line item, Mr. Mayor. You have already approved a line item for the Afternoon of the Arts within the last hearing. And as well, it'll continue to come forward and you'll continue to see it as you make additional decisions into the future. So it was, Ms. Turner, $276,000, if I remember my budget book off the top of my head, which is $251,000 within your line item called Afternoon in the Arts, which allows Ms. DeViso and Ms. Desmond flexibility within that line item based on the various items you saw her share today. In addition, we're planning to bring to you a series of budget transfers which haven't yet been fully calculated, but it is within that list of an analysis that Ms. Turner is currently conducting in advance of June 2nd's meeting.
All right, so is this approved yet already or not? It is approved in the budget?
Yes, it is. It's been approved both by me and then also endorsed by the committee at our last budget hearing. Ms. DeViso, it was requested that we have a presentation by Mr. Dakota, hence Ms. DeViso's appearance tonight.
Okay, Ms. Martin? No. Okay. So it's included in the budget that we're gonna vote on tonight?
Yes, it's included within and as a, yes.
Okay. All right. Huh? Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Excellent job, Ms. DeViso.
All right, report on motions.
Mr. Mayor, there's actually, you have the report, and for sake of time, the motion response here was already heard by the committee in a subcommittee setting. Was a response to Ms. Dougherty's motion. It's brought here because, again, it's the first opportunity for the full committee, but it was already heard by the committee, and I believe Ms. Martin already presented on that subcommittee report.
Okay. I just had a couple of quick questions. So on the second to last page, motion by myself to have the office superintendent, Lowell School Committee identify a date in early June as Day of Appreciation for all Lowell public staff. It's blank. And we just have that.
Yeah, tell me the date.
When are we doing a teacher awards, retirement awards on the?
Oh, that's
What day is that?
you want to set? We can set that date. I'm gonna have to look in my calendar to see that date, though I don't have it off the top of my head. But if you would like to just for it to coincide there, and that's amenable to the committee, I'll just take that note, Mr. Mayor.
Is that the 2nd, June 2nd, or the 16th? Probably the 2nd is our first. 2nd is our first meeting in June,
2nd is your first meeting in June, yes.
and I think that's when we're doing the teacher retirements, right?
Would you like to set that date, Mr. Mayor?
Well, yeah, so.
All right.
But we are doing the retirement awards that day, I believe, right?
Don't have that date off the top of my head. I'm gonna have to check with Ms. Palazzo in the morning, who keeps the full calendar for the committee, so. Ms. Sheehan, do you happen to have that date? I don't. No.
I do not, but I know that when I was speaking with Ms. Jarvis, I think she did say it's going to be the first meeting in June.
So June 2nd.
It would be June
would
2nd.
that? Okay.
But I can't confirm it 100%.
Okay.
We wanna, I'll take that back. If the committee would be kind enough to authorize the mayor, I can work just directly with you on that motion, Mr. Mayor, and set that date.
Sure, okay. All right. Where are we, motions, so need a, no, all right, now we got motion response for Ms. Doherty regarding the school site council. Ms. Doherty?
That was the one that was discussed when Ms. Martin talked about our subcommittee meeting. So the report is just a report of progress. We discussed it in subcommittee.
Okay, all right. So motion to accept the reports, 8-1 through 8-3 is reports of progress by Mr. Dakota, seconded by Mr. Dillon. New business, adoption of the FY22 budget. Any discussion on that?
This is simply to affirm the vote that the committee already took on Monday. We're talking here again for the community that may be up at this hour. This is the general fund, not the ESSER budget. Those are two separate funds. The general fund amount of $194,284,378.
Motion approved by Ms. Martin, seconded by Ms. Clark. Roll call.
Ms. Delay?
Yes.
Mayor Leahy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Yes. Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Mr. Dillon?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas approved.
Okay, vote of inter-district school choice. Mr. Superintendent?
The recommendation my recommendation is to continue with the process of the past several years, which is to opt out of participation in the inter-district school choice program.
All right, motion to adopt the recommendation of the superintendent by Mr. Dakota, seconded by Mr. Dillon. Roll call.
Ms. Delay?
Yes.
Mayor Leahy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Mr. Dillon?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas approved.
Approval of summer volunteer work pay rates. Any questions on that?
We may have already, I just had one quick question.
Sure, Ms. Martin.
So we call it volunteer work, do we mean voluntary?
I'm okay with changing the language. Dr. Hall, there's nothing specific in the language that you need it to be said one way or the other, right?
I believe Ms. Martin's suggestion is technically right.
All right, then let's go.
You're gonna pay for that, but okay.
Okay, a motion to approve summer school volunteer, is that what you said? Voluntary work. Motion by Ms. Martin, seconded by Ms. Doherty. Roll call. Voluntary.
Ms. Delay?
Yes.
Mayor Leahy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Mr. Dillon?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas approved.
Professional personnel. Members of United Teachers of Lowell hereby donate 37 sick day leaves to Patricia Teague, Daily School, Middle School paraprofessional. Any questions? Motion approved by Mr. Dillon, seconded by Ms. Clark. Roll call.
Ms. Delay?
Yes.
Mayor Leahy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin? Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Mr. Dillon?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
7 yeas approved.
Motion to stay later by Ms. Doherty. Oh, to adjourn. Ms. Doherty, seconded by Ms. Delay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
That's perfect.
Don't we have to adjourn to executive session? Are we adjourning to executive? Aren't we adjourning to executive session? Are we adjourning to executive? Oh, all right.
All right, do you want to just stay here for executive session? There's nobody here. Okay.